We are live on a Thursday. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and of course, you're streaming the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Mike Gill, Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there. It is a Thursday show. The Phillies are in action today, but I want to kind of lead off with what happened last night. Phillies are 0-0 in the third. We'll keep you posted throughout the day today. So Luke Williams comes up last night in the bottom of the ninth and basically saves what was another dreadful offensive performance by the Phillies. And here they are through 3 innings today. They essentially have nothing going as well. Frank Close wrote at 973ESPN.com, and I'm not suggesting that he's wrong. I'm just saying this is what it's got to, that Luke Williams changes the Phillies' energy level. And they need Luke Williams, a guy who essentially has zero major league experience. He made his major league debut 2 days ago. And now they are hoping that this kid comes in. And he's not really a kid. He's 24 years old. Like, people are asking me, who's this guy, Luke Williams? Where did he come from? He was a third-round pick. He was playing for Team USA a couple of days ago for the team trials for the Olympics. He's got a great story. He was voted this is like your high school yearbook. He was voted most athletic in the Philly system. I mean, he's a guy that was drafted in the third round. I'm imagining they had some anticipation for him, right? They were hoping that he was a guy that could possibly help this franchise out, but no one's really ever heard of the guy. It's not like he's a guy that was high on the prospect charts or anything like that. But all he's ever done is really put up numbers. And what a great story last night. The guy comes up in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, and by now you've probably heard his interview. He could barely get through. He's, I'm going to cry, and his family's there. It's just a great story. But is it great for the Phillies? And I say that not to knock Luke Williams. Luke Williams is a great story. Third-round pick, signed with the team, goes to, I think he played in Lakewood a couple of years ago. And, he had 216 at Lakewood. He had 220 at Low A Williamsport. He had 245 with the Clearwater Threshers. These are not numbers that are jumping off the page here, are they? He, in 2009, was at Reading. He had 238. He didn't play last year because of the COVID. And here he is. Somehow, some way, the Phillies are finding a way to find guys like Nick Maton and Luke Williams. The problem is when you're relying on Nick Maton and Luke Williams, not Lou Williams, the former Sixer, now Atlanta Hawk, Luke Williams, doesn't your organization have problems? Isn't that a problem when you need to call up Nick Maton, when you need to call up Luke Williams? And by the way, Nick Maton has been one of the bright spots. Now, he got sent back down, but he has had some big hits this season to help this team win. The question is, where would you be without Nick Maton and Luke Williams? And I think that is kind of the state of the Phillies right now, that Nick Maton and Luke Williams have been necessities on this team, and that's not good. I know it's a great story. I'm not diminishing the Luke Williams story. He hits the game-winning home run in the bottom of the ninth. It's a tremendous story. He comes up today. He gets an infield single. He's 1 for 1. The guy's hitting .667. Wasn't Nick Maton hitting about .450 for the first 2 weeks that he got called up to? Before he completely got sent out back to obscurity, he's now hitting third for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, for those of you who are wondering. Where did Nick Maton go? That's where he went, because the league quickly caught up to Nick Maton, and the Nick Matons of the world don't help the franchise. They're just extra pieces when you are in need of break glass moments. Nick Maton is there. I hope Luke Williams is more than what I'm describing. I would love to see Luke Williams be more than what I'm describing. He hit .444 in the Team USA qualifying tournament for the Summer Olympics. He scored 6 runs. He had 6 RBI. But when you go back and look at Luke Williams' minor league career, I wouldn't get all that excited that this story is going to have the fairy tale ending that it started with. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. You know, in his minor league career, in 6 minor league seasons, he's a career .241 hitter with 23 home runs in 458 games. Hardly numbers that you get all that excited about. These are hardly numbers that you're going to be like, they found the next guy here. What were they thinking? We always fall into the moment of Luke Williams. This guy's great. He has a fairy tale story. How come they didn't play him before? They played him last night because they needed to play him. Why did the Phillies need to play him? They stink right now. He's playing third base today. That's not good. Why? Well, because the guy you drafted in the first round usually plays third base. He is almost unplayable defensively right now. Had another error in the game last night. Do I want Luke Williams to succeed? I hope he wins the frickin' MVP, for God's sakes. Do I think that's going to happen? Obviously not. But the problem the Phillies organization has right now is they need Luke Williams, and they need Nick Matons, and they need Torreyes. And that's not a recipe for a good organization. It simply isn't. And they can go on the seesaw all season long. They're 29-31. The Braves are 29-30. Both of these teams are kind of heeing and hawing and back and forth. But when I look at that Braves lineup, I just wonder, when is it going to break out? Not if. With the Phillies, I'm kind of looking up and down that lineup and wondering if this is all they really are. You know, Odubel Herrera is hitting .267. .267, other than Gene Segura, he's the best hitter on the team. Odubel Herrera, a guy who hasn't played baseball in 2 seasons. He, right now, is your best hitter. Other than Gene Segura, Segura's hitting .317. Bryce Harper, .265. Rhys Hoskins, .251. Andrew McCutchen, .219. This is an organization that is just kind of stuck in mediocrity. It's stuck in the middle, and it can't find its way out. It's a team that consistently has to call on the Nick Matons and the Luke Williams to get them out of problems. You know, a lot of teams, when they're struggling and they have to call somebody up, they call up that top-level prospect that's been waiting in the minor leagues and everybody gets excited for. We seemingly are getting so used to getting excited for the Luke Williams of the world, and we know how this story is going to end, don't we? Don't we know how Luke Williams' fairy tale beginning is going to end? I assure you, it won't have a glass slipper. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. You know, this isn't like, hey, the Phillies are absolutely rotten to the core. No, they're just average, and that's the problem. I was having a conversation with Bob Wankel on Friday about this. You either have to rip the Band-Aid off and be the team that loses 15 in a row, or put the pedal to the metal and be the team that wins 15 in a row. And 15's a crazy number. You have to know this. In sports today, and I know people don't want to hear it and they don't like it, you either have to be at the top of the pedestal or at the bottom of the pedestal. You can't be the Phillies, because if you are, you end up with the Nick Matons of the world. You have to rely on the Luke Williams of the world. It's hard to get Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies and Freddie Freeman when you're constantly stuck in the middle. And I know in basketball, it's very vogue to do what the Sixers did and other teams have followed and to land that top-end talent. Baseball's a lot harder. The Phillies had the number 1 pick in the draft. It was 5 years ago yesterday, and they missed. They took Mickey Moniak. And I'm not crushing them for that. You don't know in the baseball draft who's going to be able to play and who's not going to be able to. But there's a lot of guys in that baseball draft that weren't drafted in the first round. So again, I'm not killing the Phillies, but during their bad seasons, they didn't get any talent to help them get out of it. And this is where they are stuck in this middle ground. You know, the Phillies are becoming what the Sixers once were. In the post-Allen Iverson era, the Sixers were a team that were just stuck in the middle. They weren't really awful. They were just kind of existing to the point of apathy. It's the worst thing that you can have happen to a fan base is apathy. When the fan base becomes apathetic to your brand, you have lost. When you have lost the fans, you are in trouble. The Sixers in the post-Iverson era and even part of the Iverson era, they went to the conference finals. They were on top of the world. They lost that series. The very next season, they dropped to fourth. They came back. They won a first-round series. They lost in the second round. You know, that's the last time that team would even approach 50 wins. They won 48 wins, and that's the most wins they had, 48, until they won 52 games a couple of seasons ago. But all of a sudden, the Sixers kind of became what the Phillies are now. 33 and 49, 43 and 39, 38 and 44, 35 and 47, 40 and 42, knocked out in the first round, 41 and 41, knocked out in the first round, 27 and 55, 41 and 41, knocked out in the first round, 35 and 31. They won that series against the Bulls, lost in the conference semis against the Celtics, 34 and 48. You see the pattern here? It's tough to be good when you're just mediocre. And it's tough to not be mediocre because you want to appease the fans and show them that you're trying. Not anymore. So while Luke Williams is a great story and he helps you out, the Phillies need to make a decision. Do they want to be the 76ers from 2002 to 2013? Or do they want to be the 76ers from 2013 to 2017? If you're asking me, I choose the latter. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. Mike, when does Didi come back? There's an interesting question because he hit leadoff last night down in Lehigh Valley. I would imagine he's getting ready to come back here pretty soon. That means Tereus, who's actually played pretty well at shortstop defensively, where this team really struggles defensively. But the Phillies, this is a team that in the, Charlie Manuel era, I guess we can call it, they were a winning franchise. They were the Sixers of 2000. Now, the Sixers of 2000, they only won, 1 year where they won. The Sixers, as we know, have not won, which is crazy to think. They have not won a second-round series. They have not gotten out of the second round since that Allen Iverson team. And the Phillies had, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. And then after 2011, they kind of fell apart and they went into the abyss. They actually went into Sixers mode. They went into tank mode. Problem for the Phillies was it didn't help them. We blast and blame Sam Hinkie and others for missing on a lot of picks, and they did. They missed on a ton of picks, the Sixers did. But they hit on the most important one, Joel Embiid. They hit on the second most important one, Ben Simmons, although that's debatable between a lot of people out there, I'm aware. But what the Phillies didn't do is in the time when they were really bad, they never got a player to kind of build this thing around. And that's where they're stuck still. When your best player is Rhys Hoskins, it's the equivalent of your best player being Andre Iguodala. That doesn't mean Iguodala stinks. He's just not good enough to be your best player. Rhys Hoskins doesn't stink. He's just not good enough to be your best. Well, you have Bryce Harper. You do have Bryce Harper. And you know what? We're finding out right now that Bryce Harper's a great player, but in baseball, it takes more than just having Bryce Harper in the middle of the lineup. And you have JT Realmuto, who, look, we talked about it last year when he signed. He's going to get overpaid. He's going to get overpaid. JT Realmuto is going to get overpaid because the Phillies kind of were backed into a corner and nobody else wanted to pay him. So the Phillies were like, all right, if nobody else is going to pay him, we've got to do something. So they brought him back. And I can't sit here and tell you it was a bad decision to bring him back, but your ROI on JT Realmuto, 2 years from now, you're going to be saying, oh, man, he makes a lot of money. You're damn right he does. On a team that's pretty mediocre. I mean, JT Realmuto this year, I'm not saying he's overpaid. He's making $20 million for his position, but guess what? At 31, he's going to be making 23.8. At 32, he's going to be making 23.8. At 33 and 34, he's going to be making $23.8 million. They were backed into a corner. They didn't know what to do, so they had to do it. And I look around this Phillies organization, and I just wonder, how do they get out of mediocrity? How do they do it? Because when you're bringing Luke Williams up and you're using Nick Maton and Ronald Torreyes, that's essentially, hey, this is all we got in the organization. It was an eye-opening thing when Luke was, like, it's a great story, but I'm thinking, my God, they don't have anybody else? And I'm looking around this lineup, and I talked with Bob about this on Friday. If you were to make a trade to replace somebody in the starting lineup, who is it? Well, Herrera, okay, he's okay. Segura, okay, he's okay. Obviously, you're not replacing Harper. Hoskins, well, I mean, he's okay. McCutcheon's at the end of the road. Okay, you can convince me that you would replace McCutcheon. You know, Bohm's a first-round pick. You're not going to, pull the plug on him already. And I'm not advocating that. JT Realmuto, you're not replacing him. Didi Gregorius, all right. I mean, maybe he's okay. Every guy in the lineup, you're just like, okay, they're okay or they're good. I mean, Bryce Harper's a great player. JT Realmuto, very good. But you have one great player, a very good player, and then everybody else, okay, they're okay. Aaron Nola, very good. Zach Wheeler, very good. I would say Nola is very good, and I'm not a Nola. I like Nola. He has been awful the last couple of weeks. In fact, the game the other night, they're throwing Drew Smiley, okay? Yeah, that Drew Smiley. The Braves threw Drew Smiley against you, and you have Aaron Nola on the mound. You score 5 runs, and I'm not blasting the offense. You score 5 runs in a game when Drew Smiley is pitching and lost with your ace on the mound. Nola's got to be better in that situation. It's a division game against the Braves. They've got Smiley. When the pitching things start, everybody starts out with their ace. And then through the year, it kind of goes boom, 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 to where you guys match up, and you got Nola and they got Smiley. Advantage Phillies. And they didn't take advantage of that. Now, the Braves scored 5 in the 8th in that game. I get it. They did it against the bullpen, but you had a 5-0 lead, or excuse me, you scored 5 runs in that game, but Nola gives up 1 in the first, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, and, you finally get the lead. You're up 5-4, and then your bullpen comes in. But that's a game where if Nola's pitching, you're hoping that your 5 runs holds up because he's shutting them down. And it's not happening. Look, Nola's very good. I'm putting him in the very good category. Wheeler, I would say, is great. I love the Wheeler signing, and he's been great. And as we're having this conversation right now, he's still great. He's pitching well. I don't know if he's going to pitch well the rest of the day, but as of this conversation that we're having now, in 4 innings, he's given up 1 hit and 6 strikeouts. That's how you come in the night after you get a big walk-off homer, and you say, I got to win this series. That's an ace right there. And then after him, Eflin, he's okay. And the rest of the rotation, come on. They are what they are. Very frustrating, though. I watched a lot of Phillies games at the start of this year, and they are losing me, man. I watched almost something I haven't done in a while, like watched every single night, 9 innings of baseball. It was like a breath of fresh air to be like, I'm back into baseball. I'm back into this team. The brand of baseball's but I like this team. But man, the more and more I watch this team, they're just okay. Just an okay team, and that sucks. A lot of mistakes along the way there, man. A lot of mistakes. 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, keep your comments coming. We're going to read them off in the next segment. So if you have a Phillies comment, a Sixers comment, Eagles, keep them coming. Text board's open, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Sixers and Hawks, Friday night on 97.3 ESPN. You can listen to all the action right here. Coming up today, a lot of you guys out there today. I wanted to keep this Thursday show open for you guys. So we'll open the text board at 609-403-0973, the comment section on the video stream, and we'll open up the phones. If you want to jump in on the horn, the old-fashioned way, 609-573-3776, 609-573-ESPN. Jump on board. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. 226 here on your Thursday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Watch the show live, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I know that the people watching the show, I see your comments coming in on the stream. I will get to those. I got some text messages coming in I want to get to as well for the people listening on the radio. I get asked all the time. Somebody just said to me, hey, I heard I could watch your show. How do I do that? And I said, it's pretty easy. All you got to do is go to Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Search 973 ESPN. If you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, if you subscribe, you'll get the alert when we go live. If you are at Facebook, you just go to our Facebook page. You'll see the video right there. If you follow us on Twitter at 973 ESPN, you can get the video there. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can use your smart TV, use the YouTube app. You can use your laptop, your phone, your tablet, your computer. So if you want to watch the show live, and if you're watching the show live, we always ask that if you can, share it, like it, subscribe, send it around. Tell us where you're watching from, all that good stuff. All right, let me get some text messages here. 609-403-0973. Mike, the Phillies need to throw money at the entire Rays scouting department and hire them all. The Phillies' payroll is 3 times higher. That's a pipe dream, but it's a well-thought-out pipe dream. Everybody is trying to duplicate what the Rays are doing. The problem is, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, they say, but sometimes when somebody does it, it's because they know how to do it. You trying to imitate what they do doesn't mean you're going to do it. You're just going to be a cheap imitation of what they are. That's why no one has been able to really, really follow what they do, the Rays, because they don't have the people to pull it off. I could go on YouTube and probably figure out how to, install a light or a fan, a chandelier, electrician style. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get hired to be an electrician. I can figure out how to do it, go to YouTube, watch somebody do it. But I don't think I'd be the guy who's saying, you know what, I can now install your ceiling fan at your house. So people keep trying to install ceiling fans the way the Rays do. The problem is they're the professionals and you're not. That's why they're better at it. That doesn't mean they're winning the World Series. That doesn't mean they're the best. But the reason they don't win the World Series or the best is because, quite frankly, they don't have the talent. And they can't sustain the talent that they have because they don't have the money. You ever been to a game in St. Petersburg, Florida? There's nobody there. I don't know how the hell they pay anybody. There is nobody at those games down there. I mean, by the way, St. Petersburg is a small little town. I mean, it's not like some booming. Now, I know it's Tampa Bay, like the whole Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. But it's not like, they're not a big deal down there, the Rays. They just aren't. They don't have a lot of money coming into that place. So what they do it better than you. So you can't just emulate them. You got to have somebody, everybody tries to copy the other guy. Oh, look what the Rays do. Let's try to do that. Why don't you be creative and do something the way that you want to do it? And maybe your way is better than them, or it's just different from them. We all try to copycat. They do that, so then I got to do that. You can't do what the Rays do. If you're trying to do what the Rays do, then you're going to fail. And you might say, well, the Rays haven't won anything. Look, the Rays have not won a World Series. The fact that they're in the World Series is unbelievable with their payroll. I tell my buddy all the time, he's a Yankees fan. And I'm like, anytime anybody, forget the Yankees, anytime a team loses to the Rays, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed that they are that much smarter than you. It is like them just absolutely peeing on your head and telling you it's raining. And everybody just tries to outspend them. Whew. Can't do it because they're smarter than you. In the end, they're better at building this than you are. But in the end, it's a great example of it's not the only way to do something. It's not the only way to build your team. I love what the Rays do, but I like it for them. I don't like it for me. I appreciate the Rays for what they do, but I don't want the Phillies to emulate them because you know why? Unless you get me the guys that they're doing it with, not as good. If you give me a second-rate Rays front office, then I'm getting a second-rate version of the Rays. And I don't want a second-rate version of the Rays. I want a better version than the Rays. So, yeah, the Rays do it great. But if teams try to follow what the Rays do, it's not going to work as well. The Dodgers are able to do it because they got the guy that started it. And the Rays kept the rest of that group. Now, the guy, what's his name? That went to Boston, Bloom, from the Rays. You're seeing Boston, the team that was in disarray. You know who was there? Dombrowski. Dombrowski tried to do it one way. Now they're bringing in a guy to try to do it that way. And they got the guy who got kind of the Rays off the map. There's only so many guys that can do that, though. We don't have this whole world full of guys that are like these apt to building a Major League Baseball franchise on a shoestring budget. 609-403-0973. Text messages continue to come in. I'll hit them up here. Chaim Bloom is his name, yes. He's the Red Sox chief baseball officer. He is the new guy in Boston. And, you know, Boston had a terrible year last year or the year before, and now they're kind of turning them things around. Mike, if the Sixers get knocked out by the Hawks, does Ben get traded? I doubt it. Gill, this Phillies team has no identity. They might go out and score 5 to 12 runs, which is rare, or they might go in and be no hit. Not knowing what you're going to get is more frustrating than being a bad team. They do have an identity. Their identity is they have no identity. That's what their identity is, that they don't know what they are. All right, more messages coming in. Dave says, keep Bohm, Eflin, Hoskins, Nola, and that's about all the young guys they have to build on. Get rid of the rest. I'd get rid of I would say, David, my phone lines are open, and Hoskins and Nola are on the other end of that call if you want them. Bohm I'd keep. Eflin I'd keep. Well, I mean, Eflin, if you called me for him, I'm saying, what can I get back in return? The two most bundles I can get back involve Hoskins and Nola. Those two guys. If I can trade Nola and Hoskins, I have to. So, David, I agree to some extent. Unless you told me Bohm is getting me some monster package, then I'm not going to be married to Bohm. But I think Hoskins gets you something. I think Nola gets you something. And it stinks to say you have to give up on Nola. But he's getting to that point where he's just, you know, what is he? He's a number 2. He's starting to get to the point where I'm not saying he's old, right? He's not old, but at what point are you like, okay, he's getting past the point of where he's going to be his best? Aaron Nola is, 28 years old? So you're going to get like another 2 really good years out of Nola, I guess? You know, Nola had that year a couple of years ago when he was 3rd in the Cy Young Award. He was 17-6 with a 2.37 ERA. He hasn't come close to that. His ERA has been almost a full run more at best since then. It was 387, 328, 406. So to David's question, I would try to keep Bohm. I would try to keep Eflin, but I'm open to listen. The 2 guys I'm trying to move are Hoskins and Nola. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. More Sports Bash coming up here on a Thursday. All right, 2:41 here on a Sports Bash Thursday. I'm Mike Gill. It is a interesting day because you have that extra day off now for the Sixers and the Hawks, which I know people are all amped up to get this Game 3 going. Ben Simmons was named the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. It was Rudy Gobert who won the award. Wasn't Rudy Gobert defending Simmons the night he scored 41 points? Simmons said, he's the Defensive Player of the Year, and I scored 41 on him, and people don't think I can score. And that's basically what happened there. Rudy Gobert is a great defensive player. Ben Simmons should win the award. Rudy Gobert ain't running around with Trae Young. Rudy Gobert is a big part of their defense, but keep in mind, he's defending against a position that has become pretty limited in the NBA. You have a lot of big guys who don't have much offense. Rudy Gobert does a fantastic job of defending the paint. He's not switching out on Trae Young and then going back to Joel Embiid. He's essentially guarding Joel Embiid, and when he guards Joel Embiid, that doesn't go all that well for him. So Rudy Gobert, I mean, it's, again, these NBA awards, by the way, you're the NBA, you put your awards out. You did the Coach of the Year first, fine. You did the MVP second, and then the Defensive Player of the Year? Wouldn't you think you'd wait to the end of the line to announce who your most valuable player was? Instead, you announced who the Defensive Player of the Year was after you announced who the MVP was. I mean, usually baseball is the one that makes the boneheaded decisions, but the NBA, like all these awards that they do, it's starting to get cartoonish. Tom Thibodeau won the Coach of the Year, and I said before I thought Tibbs would probably win it. I mean, the Knicks were way better than anybody thought they might be. Doc Rivers finished fourth, and I didn't think that he was going to win the award. You know, the guys that I thought would win the award, you know, it had to be Tom Thibodeau. Was a team that essentially had no expectations coming in. They were the 4 seed. So I thought he would be the guy that wins the award. Monty Williams in Phoenix, he was the other guy. They were a team that last year hadn't made the playoffs in 10 years. This year they won 50-plus games. You can make an argument that that should win you the award. It was a close ending, by the way, 351 to 340. Quinn Snyder in Utah, they were the number 1 seed. Doc Rivers got it in Philly. It was the 4th guy on the list. Nate McMillan got votes. Steve Nash in Brooklyn. Yeah, the same Steve Nash that basically said, I'm not here to be a tactical wizard. I'm here for continuity. I'm here for connectivity, I should say. I mean, here's Steve Nash putting on a billboard like, hey, my role is not really all that important. I'm just kind of here so that we have peace and harmony between our superstars. And then they announce the MVP, and Jokic runs away with it. Right? All right, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Text board. Mike, I'm getting extremely tired of hearing you want to get rid of Hoskins. No, I never said I want to get rid of Hoskins. What I said is, this is where listening helps, but I'll speak slow, is he's the only guy that gets you back something in return. I don't want to get rid of Hoskins. I just wish that the team was better because they have Reese Hoskins on it. He's not that type of player. He's a good player, but he's not the player that makes the team exceptional. But what I said is, if the Phillies have to make a decision, do they want to stick down this road of mediocrity? Because Reese Hoskins keeps you on the road to mediocrity. That's proven. He's in a lineup with Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto. I mean, if they can't score enough runs with that core, then you're just average. So I'm not saying I want to get rid of Hoskins. I said he's the only guy. He doesn't make a lot of money, and he can get you back something in return. This isn't he sucks, get rid of him. This is he's pretty good. He doesn't make a lot of money. If you want to make it, the Phillies need to change the identity of this team, right? They need to change the identity of this team. Reese Hoskins has been here for what, 3-4 years now. This is who he and this is who they are. You might like Reese Hoskins, and that's cute. But for 5 years, This is who the Phillies have been with him. He hit a lot of home runs his first year up. That was great. He had 18 home runs, faster than anybody else did in the history of baseball or something like that. He's got a nice on-base percentage at times. Not so much this year. He's a career .241 hitter. You be the guy that hitches your wagon to the .241 hitter in the middle of the lineup. Hoskins is a nice player. I'm not ripping Hoskins, but what I said is he can get you something in return. Nobody else on this team can. So either you can go down your path and keep Rhys Hoskins and continue down the path of mediocrity, or you can make a decision. Do we want to be mediocre, or do we want to change the complexion of this team? Me personally, I think this team is in a dead-end direction. How do I change the dead-end direction? I got to get rid of somebody. Well, I'm not getting rid of Bryce Harper. No one's taking that contract. I'm not getting rid of JT Realmuto. No one's taking that contract. You could try to trade McCutchen. You're not getting anything back in return. You could try to trade Herrera. You're not getting anything back in return. You could try to trade Segura. You're not getting anything back in return. You could try to trade Didi Gregorius. You're not getting anything back in return. The one guy in this team that you can get something back for is Rhys Hoskins. So again, it's not me wanting to get rid of Rhys Hoskins. It's me understanding that this team is stuck in the middle and they need to change the complexion of this team. They need to change the makeup of this team. Right or wrong. So you can keep Rhys Hoskins and keep going down this road because I don't see where they're making this team any better. How are they improving this roster? The guys I just mentioned, you could trade all those guys. Get rid of McCutchen. What am I getting back for McCutchen? A single-A bullpen arm? I mean, the guy's at the end of the road. People always want to trade the guy that you're not getting anything back for. Trade Segura. Nobody wants Segura. Trade Didi. Nobody wants Didi. I mean, these are guys that, yeah, I'll take them. If you want to give them to me, I'm not going to give you anything of value back, but if you just want to change the roster, change the complexion of your team, I'll take them for you. Yeah, a team that's competing for a playoff berth would say, sure, I'll take Gene Segura, but I'm only taking him because you don't want him. And if I'm taking him because you don't want him, means I'm not giving you anything. Again, I don't want to get rid of Hoskins, but I also don't want to be this version of the Phillies. I'm tired of this version of the Phillies. So if I don't want to be this version of the Phillies, who do I have to get rid of? Who's the one guy that is realistically going to get me something back in return? It's Rhys Hoskins. This isn't I want to get rid of him. This is I understand he's the guy. I know he hits home runs. Everybody in this league hits home runs. If you haven't noticed, that's what this league is. It's a bunch of guys hitting home runs. He hits .226 with 29 home runs. That's not great. That's average. .226 is bad. 29, that's okay. 29 home runs is okay. That doesn't make him bad. I mean, he's a nice player. I'm not ripping on Rhys Hoskins. The fact that you like Bohm over him is ridiculous. Guy is trash. Bring back Franco. Okay. Sure. Okay. That kind of says everything right there. Bohm last year, by the way, hit .338 with a .400 on-base percentage. This year, he is struggling at .216 with a .260 on-base percentage. So he's not hitting very well either. So if you want to say, my point is, I don't know that you're going to trade Alec Bohm and get a whole heck of a lot back. You're making my point. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying that Hoskins gets you more. That's the point. You're making it for me. Hoskins is the only guy that gets you something back in return. Him and Nola. I don't want to trade Nola. I like Nola. Right? I like Nola. but I understand that this team is only what they are if they keep Nola on the team. Every time I listen to your show, you're talking about getting rid of him. Yeah, I am talking about getting rid of him. Not because I want you to get rid of him. Again, I will speak a little slower for you because you're not computing this. I am talking about getting rid of him. Not because I want to get rid of him, because I understand he's the only guy you have that has any value. That's it. What other guy am I trading on this roster that gets me something back of value to change the complexion of the team? Give me a guy. Give me somebody. If you don't want me to get rid of Hoskins, fine. Give me a guy that will change the complexion of this team that's realistic, because no one's trading for Bryce Harper. No one's trading for JT Realmuto. So give me a guy on this team. You're saying you're talking about getting rid of him and just not today. Yeah, I said I don't want to get rid of him, but he's the only guy that you can trade that will change this roster and get you a different path, a different vision, a different way to go. Because the way they're going with Rhys Hoskins for the last 5 years, they've been the same team. They're about 500. So if I say, how do I get out of being 500? What do I have to do? You can't keep going down the path you're on. You're 500. You're 500 again right now. So again, I will say this slow for this gentleman who I wish I had his name, because I would like to, give him a shout out for, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you texting in, and I would appreciate if you listened a little closer. I don't want to get rid of Rhys Hoskins, but I understand that if this team is going to get any better, they need to change this roster up. They need to change this roster up. And he's the only guy that makes sense. He's the only guy on this team that you can trade that makes any sense. That's realistic. Now, you could tell me, trade Zach Wheeler. Fine. You want to trade Zach Wheeler? You think that's going to change the complexion of the team? He's the one guy at the most important position that actually is any good. So let's, in a league where pitching is now paramount because nobody can hit, let's trade the best pitcher we have. Smart. Okay. I guess you could put him on the list. You want to trade Zach Wheeler because you're getting back a couple of top-level guys? I don't have a problem with that. I don't want to trade Zach Wheeler. I don't think that's the first guy I'm trading. But if you want to, I don't have a problem with it. You're not winning with this team. You're not winning with Zach Wheeler. You're not winning with Aaron Nola. You're not winning with Rhys Hoskins. You're not winning with Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto. You are not winning with this roster. You tried it last year. You didn't win with it. You tried it the year before. You didn't win with it. You didn't have Harper the year before that, and you won just as many games. You didn't have Harper the year before that, and you won just as many games. So the Rhys Hoskins, Aaron Nola, that core of guys, Gene Segura, you're not winning with those guys. I think we've seen this, all right? We're banging our heads against the wall with this roster. I know you're attached to some of these players. They've been here for 5 years. Again, Rhys Hoskins, nice player. Not saying he stinks, not saying he's bad, just saying he has value. I think he has value. So if you told me I could trade Rhys Hoskins and get, I don't know, a decent prospect that is a pitcher and maybe something else, and that kind of, allows me to move Bohm to play first base. Now I can get a third baseman that's not hurting me defensively so bad. One of the problems with Bohm is he's so bad defensively that I got to imagine he's carrying that over to his offense. So put him at first base. All right, Hoskins, I'm getting pieces back in return because I have a valuable piece that can help my team. I have somebody that can replace him. That's where I would start. Instead of saying that I want to get rid of Hoskins, give me a better way. Give me a better alternative. How about that? I'll ask you that. What's a better alternative? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Hour 2 of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, live video. 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just search those properties, and you can find us there. I'm Mike Gill. Coming up this hour, Keith Smith, little NBA Sixers, as they have the day off. Last night, you saw the Suns essentially eviscerate the Nuggets. How about last night, Michael Malone saying his team quit? You don't hear that all that often, but he came out and said, yeah, we essentially quit. Really called them out. Interesting. Mike, why are we saying who to get rid of and not asking why aren't we winning with this team full of high-profile guys? Getting rid of one player isn't going to make this team better, in my opinion. If this team isn't clicking, then maybe we should move a bunch of those players at the deadline and start over. Well, that's essentially what I said, is they're not winning. Why are they not winning? Because this is just a team full of good players. They're good and average players. They have, look, your question is very fair, and I wish people would leave their names so I can give you credit. Your question is fair. Why are we not asking, why aren't we winning? Well, I answered that question. They don't have high-profile guys. You said this team is full of high-profile guys. Who is high-profile on this team other than Bryce Harper? Am I missing something? I mean, Andrew McCutchen was the MVP of the league in what? I mean, he's not a high-profile player anymore. He was once a high-profile player. When was Andrew McCutchen? When was the last time that Andrew McCutchen, and this isn't ripping him, but he won the MVP in 2013. That's the last time that he was a really high-level, impactful player. I mean, am I missing something, though? Where are all these high-profile guys? Aaron Nola, I wouldn't say is a high-profile guy. Maybe he is. Maybe he was third in the Cy Young. Does that make him high-profile? He had one really breakout year, and he's been good. The Phillies' problem is it's like the Sixers team of when they had Andre Iguodala, good player. Thaddeus Young, good player. They had a bunch of good players like Spencer Hawes, Evan Turner, Thaddeus Young, Elton Brand. They had good players. They didn't have high-profile players. I think you are John and Kate May. Thank you so much. Your question's fair, but the answer to your question is they don't have high-profile guys. They got a bunch of guys who are pretty good, but that's it. They're pretty good. Zach Wheeler, I wouldn't say, coming into this year, Zach Wheeler isn't thought of as like a Cy Young Award candidate. He might be pitching on that level. Rhys Hoskins isn't high profile. He's high profile for us, but that's the problem. He's high profile for us, which is mediocre. He's not high profile around the league. Rhys Hoskins isn't making an all-star team. Gene Segura is a good player. He's just a good player. That's all he is. They don't have high-profile players on this team. The Braves have 3 of them. The Mets. Look at the Mets team. And whether they're producing or not, Lindor has not worked out for them. He's been a disaster. But Jacob deGrom, that's a high-profile player. He's having one of the best seasons in the history of the game. Right? Jacob deGrom is having one of the best seasons in Major League Baseball history. Francisco Lindor, he's turned it around a little bit. Pete Alonso, I'm not saying Pete Alonso is a high-profile player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's hitting .265 with 10 home runs, which Pete Alonso is basically producing at the level of what Rhys Hoskins is. I think his batting average and his on-base percentage are better than Rhys Hoskins, but the power numbers are, I would imagine, similar. So this high profile, and the thing that you brought up, it's not that the Mets have all these high profile players. The problem with the Phillies that they're having is, look, they are a horrendous defensive team. The Phillies defense is horrible. So you cannot overcome really bad defense and average pitching. Their bullpen is average. Their starting pitching is probably above average. They got three guys, Nola, Wheeler, Eflin. Velasquez has pitched pretty well, honestly. So their starting pitching has been good enough. Their defense is horrible. But the Phillies don't have high-profile guys. That's the answer to your question there, John. Getting rid of one player isn't going to make this team better, in my opinion, is what he said. Correct. But I got to start somewhere, don't I? Don't I have to start somewhere? And you're right. Getting rid of one player is not going to make this team better, but it might be the start of allowing this team to maybe take a step back. And then you said we should move a bunch of these players at the deadline and start over. Correct. Because once you trade Hoskins, you can get something back of value in return. That hopefully helps the team take a step backwards and get out of this middle ground. And then once you get out of the middle ground where you're not in the playoff race anymore, you're more apt to say, okay, I'm willing to part with Gene Segura. I'm willing to part with Didi Gregorius. I'm willing to part with Andrew McCutchen. I'm willing to part with Odubel Herrera if anybody wants any of these guys. But you're not getting anything back for those guys. That's the point I'm making to the other guy, is I don't care about trading Rhys Hoskins. You want to keep Rhys Hoskins? Fine. Find me somebody else. Where's your first move, buddy? Because I'm all ears on how to fix it. That's the way I think you have to do it. You got to find the most valuable guy that you have. And guess what? If that most valuable guy is Zach Wheeler or Bryce Harper or JT Realmuto, you got to do it. I don't think anybody's picking up the phone. I have a hard time believing anybody saying, hey, you want to deal with Bryce Harper? Can we have his $300 million contract, please? What team's doing that? What team can afford to do that? Zero. There's not a team in baseball that's going to say, yeah, give me Bryce Harper's $300 million contract. We'll take on the rest of that. Nobody. Like the Oakland A's. Yeah, they're in first place. They probably could use Bryce Harper. You think the Oakland A's are paying him $300 million? Get the hell out of here. The Chicago White Sox are going to pay Bryce Harper? They don't need Bryce Harper. They're the best team in baseball. Them in Tampa, which, by the way, I got news for you. Tampa ain't paying Bryce Harper either. You think Boston's going to be like, you know what? I got an idea. Let's pay Bryce Harper. That'll close the gap on Tampa. The problem is Harper makes so much money. He's untradeable. JT Realmuto, his contract, I'm telling you right now, no one would have signed him to that deal. Nobody. So you can't trade JT Realmuto. So those two guys are off the table. The only other guy that I guess you can sign, that you could trade, would be Zach Wheeler. I mean, at the highest of high profile. I would say in the pantheon of Phillies high-profile players, it would be Harper 1, Realmuto 2, and probably Wheeler 3 in terms of a trade. Now, the problem is Harper 1 makes too much money. Realmuto 2 makes too much money. Wheeler, all right, let's take a look at Wheeler's contract. Well, it's 2021. He makes $22.5 million. Next year, he makes $26 million. The next year after that, he makes $24 million. The next year after that, he makes $23.5 million. All right, does somebody want to take on 20, 40, 60, $70 million for Zach Wheeler? I doubt it. But if somebody wants to trade for Zach Wheeler's $70 million contract, I'm all ears. I don't like trading Wheeler. I like Wheeler a lot. I liked when they got Wheeler. I think he's a very talented guy who was kind of, didn't hit his full potential. Now, difference, Rhys Hoskins. What does it cost to get Rhys Hoskins? Oh, you know what he makes this year? $4.8 million. He's arbitration for the next couple of seasons. He doesn't become a free agent until 2024. Don't you think that's attractive to other teams that they can have him under team control? So the guy who just said Wheeler for a couple of players, okay. But again, you know it and I know it. You have now dug your heels in because you sounded like a fool. And now you're kind of digging your heels in the sand, which is admirable of you. But you know it and I know it, that Rhys Hoskins' contract is the most tradable commodity on this team. He is the best guy they have with the best contract they have that can get you the most value in return. You're not getting value back for Wheeler. He makes too much money. So people aren't going to say, yeah, I want to take on $70 million and I want to give you my best player. And by the way, you're not getting someone's best player for Zach Wheeler. You're not getting someone's best player for Rhys Hoskins either. So I'll again, fine. You want to trade Wheeler and his contract? I would do it if I could. I don't think that's realistic. How's that? In my heart of hearts, I don't think trading Zach Wheeler is all that realistic. I don't think trading Bryce Harper is realistic. I don't think trading JT Realmuto is realistic. Do I think trading others on this team is realistic? Yes. Do I think getting anything back in return for them is realistic? No. Aaron Nola, okay, I could be convinced of an Aaron Nola trade. All right, you want to trade Aaron Nola? Fine. I have no problem with that. Nola, to me, is the pitching version of Hoskins. I don't want to trade Aaron Nola, but I know that he has some value and he doesn't make a lot of money. So how much money does Aaron Nola pay? When the other team calls and they say, what do I got to pay this guy? All right, well, this year he's making 12.5. Next year he makes $15 million, and the year after that he makes $16 million. Okay, that's a pretty manageable number. That's a pretty manageable number. So those are the guys right now, right? Those are the guys right now that make some sense. 609-403-0973. I see people in the video stream chatting away over there. Chris Willis says Kutch is a June and later primetime player. Yeah, he was in 2013. Last time McCutchen had a good, productive year, you got to go back to really his MVP days. That's it. When he left Pittsburgh, when McCutchen left Pittsburgh, so did his big years. I mean, he went to San Francisco after Pittsburgh. He was there for 1 year. He hit 255. He went to the Yankees and hit 253. And now he's here and he's hitting 244. Everything progressively down, down, down. In Pittsburgh, he hit 291. His last year in Pittsburgh, his last full year in Pittsburgh, 2017, when he was in Pittsburgh, 279, 28 homers. I'll take that guy. On base percentage, 363. Pretty good. He hasn't been the same player. Just hasn't. What else we got over here? Chris says when he played for Pittsburgh, he always warmed up as the summer went along. Yeah, well, Chris, that hasn't been for 7 years. Ask yourself a question, Chris. What did you do differently 7 years ago? You probably warmed up a lot faster in the summer 7 years ago, too, because I know I did. Jeff, what about the coach? I wonder if he can light a fire under them. Come on. We've had enough conversation about the coaches. It was Kapler's fault. You know what? Kapler's in first place right now. His team is 38-23. You know what that equals? The best record in baseball. The Phillies blamed the coach, ran him out of town, and now he's the best. They have the best record in baseball with one of the worst rosters. David, people don't get it. This Phillies team is going nowhere, and you got to make moves because there's nobody in the farm system to bring up. Got to try something new. 1,000%. 1,000%. They got very few options to fix this thing. I'm just trying to give you one. Again, I don't want to trade Rhys Hoskins. I like Rhys Hoskins. but I am certainly well aware that he's at the top of the list of guys that need to be moved because he can get you the most back in return. Sports Bash sponsored by JCPenney. Make way for Father's Day at JCPenney's Friends and Family Sale now going on through Sunday. Score the hottest savings, styles, and gifts for dad at JCPenney. When we come back, it's Inside the Sixers with National NBA writer Keith Smith as he joins us next here on the Sports Bash. 321 Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. Here he comes. Keith Smith is here to talk a little Sixers, NBA playoffs, and more. The NBA, by the way, just put out its dates for next year. The regular season will start October the 19th. The playoffs April 16th. Finals start June 1st. Game 7 would be the 19th. The draft 23rd. So they're kind of back on the old path. I kind of like this one better. Start around Christmas, take us right to NFL training camps, and then kind of have the offseason in August, September, October, November, and most of December. We'll bring Keith Smith in. And, of course, Keith Smith, you can follow him at Keith Smith NBA. Spot Rack is where you can find his new stuff. It's an excellent website, and he can explain a little bit more of what he's doing over there because he just got that gig. He's starting that now. And he joins us, as always, on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. What's going on, Keith? Congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And for those of you out there, that's a great spot to go find contractual information, all the numbers, behind-the-scenes stuff on the NBA. So we love going to that site. We've been talking a lot about that kind of stuff leading into you. And let's start with these NBA playoffs. And, hey, it's an off day here in Philly as they get ready to take on the Hawks. But kind of give us some insight on what you've seen. It's been a tale of two games, really. That first one, the Hawks kind of showed some weaknesses in the Sixers. They made some adjustments. But if you're Atlanta heading back, how are you feeling about where you are 1-1 in this series?
Yeah, if you're the Hawks, you're feeling pretty good. You did what your goal is always when you're the lower seeded team, which is to get one of those first two and steal home court advantage. And they pulled that off. Now, they've got questions for themselves that they need to answer because Joel Embiid, I thought in game one, he looked good, but I thought at times looked almost a little tentative, which is not, a real criticism or anything like that because I think he was trying to make sure his knee felt good and he was going to make it through. But then in game two, he looked anything but and absolutely dominated them, did, everything he wanted to do. But also Philly, they didn't mess around. They went right to Ben Simmons on Trae Young. Matisse Thybulle got the rest of the minutes on him, and that really, or almost all the rest of the minutes, and that made it really, really tough on Young to get going and find the footing, find the game one. So I think Philly's right back into pretty good shape. I think this is going to be a competitive series, but I still feel pretty good about the 76ers based on how good Embiid has looked.
All right, so based on some of the adjustments there, is Philly in a spot now where, okay, Atlanta's going to make the adjustments? What does Atlanta do when they go back home to kind of counter what the Sixers did with Ben Simmons on Trae Young?
Yeah, I think you're going to see them do more screening for Trae Young. They're probably going to work more guys up to the level of the ball and try and really get him freed up from those guys. So you'll see, my guess is over the last couple days here, what they have been working through is putting in screening plays, even with some guys who maybe aren't generally used to doing a lot of screening. So guys like Bogdan Bogdanovic, Solomon Hill, Danilo Gallinari, those guys off the bench. So that way you're freeing up Young, getting him into a much more advantageous situation with a better matchup. And then maybe you're also creating a mismatch on the back end of that switch as well.
Joel Embiid, I thought it was interesting in the TNT the other night. Charles Barkley said, essentially, Embiid doesn't matter in this series. He scored 39 and they lost. Well, he scored 40 the next night and they won. Does Joel Embiid matter? What's his impact in this series?
Yeah, I mean, he matters because if he's not doing that, they're going to get killed. And it's not that he has to score 40, but, as long as he's, being productive, then that matters. But it is a lot about the other guys. It's kind of always been that story with Philadelphia where you start to, look at it and say, boy, if we can get something out of these other guys, we feel really good because you kind of know Embiid's going to get you 30-ish points, somewhere in that range. He's going to get the rebounds. You need the other guys to deliver and support him in order to win. And that's what they were able to get going in game two. And that's really what they had going all year long, which is why they were a better team than they've been the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, and obviously the first game, Atlanta made 23s. And one of the things I said, Keith, was they needed every bit of those 23s. And the other night, they shot it right around their average. They didn't shoot awful, but they shot around what their average is. I think it was like 37%. And it's, to me, the Sixers are a better team. For the Hawks to beat them, they need to be better than their average. So if the Sixers can keep them around their average, is this, hey, you got us in game one, we win the next four, or do you think this one's going for the long haul?
Yeah, I don't know that it'll be the next four. It certainly could be that. That wouldn't be a complete shock, but I think it's more along the lines of what you said is, Atlanta has to play. They don't have to play out of their minds. They just have to play better than what they usually are. And I mean, they're not to oversimplify it, but Philly was the 1 seed and Atlanta was the 5 seed for a reason, right? They should be the better team, and that's in order to win, then the lower seeded team needs to play really well, and that's exactly what you said. That's what they did. Now they've got some stuff they can do and some different things that I think they could do to maybe, like we talked about, how you can free up Trae Young. I think defensively, they haven't done a whole lot of doubling on Embiid. You might want to go to that a little bit more and really try to make him work to either go quick or to beat you as a passer. But yeah, I think we're going to see Philadelphia kind of water found its level here a little bit, and I think they're in much better shape than it looked like they might have been in game one.
All right, a lot of people, as always, Keith, Ben Simmons not very active offensively. They still win the game. He scored 17 in game one. They lost. He scored 4 in game two. They won. Does it matter if Ben Simmons contributes offensively?
Not if Embiid is playing really well and Harris is doing his thing and then the other guys are making jump shots. Then you don't need Simmons to do a whole heck of a lot. And I think, his focus clearly in game two, he was the primary defender, I want to say, for about half the possessions on Trae Young. I know it's right in that range. That's where you're looking at it and say, hey, is that the trade-off? Can we, if we can get you to be that good against Trae Young, let the other guys handle the offense, because there's nobody else who can handle Trae Young defensively the way Simmons can. Thybulle's close, but it's not the same size combo that Simmons has. So I think what you're kind of looking at there is, all right, if that's what you're going to give us, that's fine as long as the other guys are stepping up. But if the jump shots aren't falling for the other guys, you need Simmons to be a little bit more involved, a little bit more aggressive, especially getting in and around the paint.
Keith Smith, spotrack.com is where you can find his work. And, of course, the Sixers tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN. They take on the Hawks in game number 3. Now, Shake Milton had the Shake Milton game, it says, being referred to here, Keith. Today, Doc Rivers said it. If you're playing well, you're going to continue to get minutes. If you're not, you're going to be sitting next to me. How far can a team go if they're going to play 10, 11 guys? I mean, most teams shorten it up at this time of the year. Can the Sixers continue to play this many guys?
I think to an extent they can, as long as Doc has a good feel and a pretty quick trigger if somebody doesn't have it. Because you're going to get Thybulle, at least in the rest of this series, probably the rest of the playoffs. He's going to play his minutes off the bench because you're going to get his defense no matter what. Then it kind of the rest of the guy, or Dwight Howard, I'm sorry, don't want to forget him. He's going to play, the 10, 15 minutes a night behind Embiid. The rest of the guys, it's really going to be, all right, we're going to run with the hot hand a little bit here, whether that's Korkmaz is really knocking him down from the outside. You can run with him a little longer. If it's Tyrese Maxey is making plays off the dribble, you can run with him. And if it's Shake Milton doing what he can do, you run with him. So you kind of know who your 2 guys are, and then you're hoping 2 other guys are going to pop out of the other ones. And if you really need another big, then that's where, Mike Scott gets into the mix potentially from there. So I think you can do it because I think you're going with that. And then I didn't intentionally mean to leave George Hill out, but I think you know what you're going to get from George Hill. So Hill, Thybulle, and Howard, they're the locks. Those 9th, 10th guys, if you go that deep, that's where you play who's going best. And Doc Rivers has a really good sense of, all right, this guy's got it going. I'm going to ride with him.
Yeah, it's funny because after game 1 and the 5 of the Washington series and game 1 of this series, people wanted more Maxey. He gave you that little energy. And then for whatever reason, Doc decided to go with Shake Milton in game 2, and that was the stroke of genius with that. Game 3 tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN. Keith Smith is with me here. All right, quick look at some of the other games tonight. Brooklyn, Milwaukee. All right, Milwaukee had Brooklyn twice in April and beat them. Certainly different, regular season, I get it. They go to Brooklyn. First game, not so good. Second game, horrendous. Does Milwaukee say, all right, we're back at home, let's figure this out, or are they out of this thing?
Yeah, you're hoping they're going to get that bounce from being back home, and that'll kind of give them what they need to get that energy moving the right way. But they have not looked good. They looked very disjointed, very disconnected on defense, and then offense hasn't looked the same. You've got Giannis settling for jumpers. Chris Middleton has basically gone missing throughout the course of this series. So I think what you're hoping for is, all right, we had a couple days here to regroup. We're back at home, and we'll come out ready to go. This, I would expect to be their best game of the series, potentially. And if it is, they can get themselves right in it. We saw this happen with the Clippers, and they had to do it on the road. So you're hoping that's what it is if you're Milwaukee. But you just keep doing the same things you've been doing, and you're letting Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving walk into jump shots, you're done. This isn't even going to be close to a series, and this thing will be over in 4.
That one's tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Clippers in Utah, 45 from Mitchell in game 1. No Mike Conley again here in game 2. The Clippers have been down. Obviously, that one's 7 with Dallas. So what Clipper team do we get tonight?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you. I feel like they wait until they're down a couple games, and then it's all right. Let's start playing, and that's not a recipe you want to plan on having available to you as the season goes along. So yeah, I'm nervous about them. I think they've got to get some stuff figured out. Now they can. I think you're going to see Kawhi Leonard get Donovan Mitchell more in this game. I think they have a pretty good sense of, all right, we can blow up some, I like to call it the Jazz's system buckets, where the Jazz run great stuff, but when you know you're going to see it 4 to 7 times in a 2-week period, you can really prep for that. So I think what you're going to see is they're going to do a good job locking in on that stuff, and then it's going to be, all right, now we're going to put Kawhi on Mitchell more, really force Bogdanovich to try to beat us because they don't have Conley, and that, we'll see if they can do that. So I expect a better effort tonight, but the Jazz are tough because they know more than any team that's in the playoffs. They know exactly who they are. Every guy on that roster knows exactly what their job is, and they just kind of do their thing. So I think you're going to see them continue to play well.
Mike Malone took a bold strategy last night, Keith. He said his team quit. Do they respond to that, or do the Suns go to Denver and take control of this? They're already in control, but really take control.
Yeah, I think they'll respond. I think they've got the guys who can do that again. It's tough when the coach challenges your guys like that. That's never a great thing. You don't like hearing, they quit, we weren't tough enough, those kind of things, because that always is something that the players quite often take to heart and don't like hearing. So I think they'll respond, but that Phoenix team is good. They have what I like to say is good functional depth. They're not going to beat you with 10, 11, 12 guys, but they're 8, 9 guys that they play. They know who they are. They know what their roles are. They know exactly what's expected of them. They're going to go to those guys, and they're playing great. What Denver has to do is Nikola Jokic has to start really dominating the matchup with DeAndre Ayton to give them any chance, and that's just been too much of a almost a wash so far in these first couple games.
All right, Keith Smith, spotrack.com. Make sure you check out his work over there. Follow him at Keith Smith NBA, and of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, as tonight we've got Bucks Nets Game 3, 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Always excellent stuff from Keith, and he'll be back next week. As by next week on Thursday, when Keith is back, it'll be previewing Sixers-Hawks Game 6. If there's a Game 6, I would imagine there probably will be. That would be my prediction. We'll be recapping Game 5, which is on Wednesday night. All right, coming up on the other side, this year's Shoppy Award winners have been introduced or have been announced. We're about to tell you who they are when we come back right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. The Shoppy Awards each and every year are awarded to the top senior athletes in our area. And Tom Williams from PrimeEvents.net will announce this year's participants, and the winner will be announced next week. So who are this year's candidates? Find out next. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Right now, we're going to take a look at this year's Billy Shoppy Awards. Tom Williams from Prime Events. These awards are handed out to the top senior athletes, both on the boys and the girls side, for their 2020 2020-2021 seasons. And Tom is going to tell us this year's nominees right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Hi, Tom. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too. How's the Babe Ruth team doing?
We had practice last night, actually. We are putting the team together. We're working. It's good to see. You mentioned how the Babe Ruth team is going. I have the ballot here. I think almost every single one of those guys played for us.
I was thinking the same thing. I know familiar names there. Before we get to the 12 finalists, boys and girls, for the Billy Shoppy Awards, there won't be any Ed Burns All Sports Award this year because there were so many sports in which there weren't championships, and that's what that's all based on. But we did have the Tony Starace Award, which will be displayed for the next year by Holy Spirit in football as the top-ranked Cape Atlantic League team. And we have the Ken Leary Memorial Award, the St. Augustine Prep will display in boys basketball, and the Joe Fussner Award that the Middle Township will display in girls basketball. We've got 12 finalists here for the Billy Shop. Alphabetically, they are Gannon Brady, All-Star South Jersey basketball sports champion. In fact, he's probably going to pitch tomorrow in the South Jersey. Harbor Township, the area player of the year in soccer, multiple champion, all-star in track. And because of the unusual indoor track season, which was actually outdoors, he decided to play basketball and be a key player for Harbor Township. CJ Holy Spirit, by the way, Ahmad Mama. CJ headed the Academy, all-star defensive back in football, and all-star infielder in baseball. Matt Gilbert of Middle Township. He led the tennis team back to back South Jersey title at #1 singles and was an all-star in soccer. Jake and Sarah of Ocean City, who's headed to the University of Pennsylvania, an all-star, two-way star in football, won the Mini Max Award from the Maxwell Club, and an all-star lacrosse player. In the league, Holy Spirit, who's headed to St. Paul. He's a key back in football, an all-star, and champion in track. Jordan Marcucci of Absegami headed to Frostburg State, also won National Club and for one season. Brady of Ocean City headed to Cabrini, two-star in football, Atlantic team in basketball, and an all-star in lacrosse. Joe Rapetti of Ocean City headed to Muhlenberg, all-star quarterback, set touchdown passing records, starting point guard in basketball for 2 years, and starting catcher on the baseball team. James Snyder of Ocean City headed to Cabrini, all-star new Cape Atlantic League record for career receptions as a wide receiver, a lacrosse all-star, setting scoring records, and played basketball. James Shertell was both St. Joe and Holy Spirit, played football and baseball for the first few years at St. Joe, transferred to Holy Spirit for his senior year. He's going to Maryland, Baltimore County, all-star quarterback, and Patrick Smith of Holy Spirit, who is a dominant running back, over 700 yards and 44 touchdowns in 3 Cape Atlantic seasons. So I think it's a pretty impressive.
It sure is. And as you mentioned there, Tom, Gannon Brady, Ahmad Brock, CJ Agri, Max Gilbert, Jack and Sarah, Devin Lee, Jordan Marcucci, Brady Ronner, Joe Rapetti, Jake Snyder, Jaden Shertell, Patrick Smith. That is this year's group for the boys on that side. And a lot of them there, as you mentioned, play multiple sports, do multiple things, and, have been rewarded for their efforts over the 4 years as the top senior athletes in the area on the boys' side. Tom, there's also a very impressive list of girls who also are very similar, that play a lot of different sports and do a lot of different things.
Yeah, it seems like, in fact, there's a school in South Jersey. I just found out this yesterday, where their travel soccer team has instructed the soccer players who are in their senior and junior years not to play high school soccer. And I think obviously that's a bit.
Hold on, Tom, for 1 second here. I'm going to try to reset your feed here. We got a little bit of a situation going on, so let me see if I can pull you out and then maybe put you back into the stream here as we got a little bit of misconnection here on the video side of things. Let me see if we can get Tom back there, because he was bringing up an interesting point that I wanted to kind of follow up on here, as we'll see if I don't know, we might have to try and do something on the phone with Tom so that we can get a better connection here and get that a little bit better so that he can give those athletes proper recognition here for the Shoppy's Award. So we'll try to bring Tom up on the phone here real quick and have him read off the names of the girls who are this year's Shoppy Award winner. Let me give you the boys' side real quick one more time while we're waiting for Tom. It's Gannon Brady, Ocean City, Ahmed Brock, EHT, CJ Egri, Holy Spirit, Max Gilbert from Middle Township, Jake and Sarah from Ocean City, Devin Lee, Holy Spirit, Jordan Marcucci, Apsagami, Brady Ronner, Ocean City, Joe Rapetti, Ocean City, Jake Schneider, Ocean City, Jaden Shurtell, St. Joe and Holy Spirit, Patrick Smith, Jaden Shurtell, St. Joe's and Holy Spirit. He transferred, and then Patrick Smith, Holy Spirit. All right, Tom, let's see if we get a better connection for the girls here. Now, you mentioned something about soccer. Go ahead.
Yeah, we were talking about multi-sport athletes, and there's a bunch of them. It seems like usual in the Cape Atlantic League this year. Maybe it's because they missed out on some sports and they're trying to get banned. I don't know. But there is a school in South Jersey where a travel team in the community has instructed the varsity players not to play high school soccer because they want them to play on the team. Those of us that cover high school sports and the value of it, that's a bad the kind of thing, though, that does sometimes happen when you don't get the proper coaching at the AAU and travel team. A lot of very good out there in those programs, but there's some that don't necessarily make decisions in the best interest of the athletes.
Yep, unfortunately, and I saw a tweet yesterday that said, the Cape Atlantic League is shortening some of the seasons, and one of the college coaches said, that only will make us watch more AAU stuff, and that you might see some of the better players decide, you know what, I'm not even going to do high school anymore, and that would be just awful.
Absolutely, it would be. And of course, one of the things that did happen, in fact, I think it was confirmed today, in 2022-23, they are shortening seasons. And the biggest impact will be felt in basketball, as they'll start the season at the same time, but we're almost 3 weeks early. So we'll have less high school basketball in 22-23. Anyway, we had a season this year. It was different, and we had 12 excellent female athletes. Alphabetically, Kylie Alvarez of Apsagami, who's going to Stockton, an all-star in soccer. She won the South Jersey Javelin with one of the top 10 throws in the state, and also had the chance to play some basketball and volleyball. Adriana Dodge of Our Lady of Mercy, going to Limestone University. She's an all-star in field hockey, scored 101 goals in lacrosse, and played basketball. Casey Etter of Millville, going to Belmont Abbey, three-time all-star in field hockey and all-star in lacrosse, where she scored 126 goals. Katie Hurley of Middle Township, headed to Rowan, three-time all-star in field hockey. She scored 102 goals, four-time all-star in basketball, 1,239 points, and an all-star in lacrosse. Tara McNally of Ocean City, headed to Hofstra, two-time all-state in field hockey, scored 65 goals, and plays lacrosse. Alexa Palmieri of Ocean City, headed to Boston University. She had a terrific career in cross-country and track, winning South Jersey championships and many all-stars, but she also was limited by injuries throughout her 4 years. Mariana Papazoglu of Wildwood Catholic, headed to the University of Pennsylvania, four-time all-star in basketball, school record 1,768 points, all-star in soccer. Sophia Pasquale of Holy Spirit, headed to Stockton, single tennis player, basketball starter, and softball starter.
Lauren
Prinz of Egg Harbor Township. She's headed to Penn State, state champion in outdoor track, won the meet of champions in indoor track, one of the top sprinters in the tri-state area.
Haley Schaefer of Apsagami, headed to Uville College, two-time all-star in basketball with 1,291 points, all-star in soccer, lacrosse with 140 goals. Faith Slimmer of Ocean City, headed to Rutgers, All-American in soccer,
soccer,
four-time All-Star,
100 career goals, 65 assists, both school records. And
Michaela
Veneziali of St. Joseph, headed to Delaware State, multiple softball All-Star, 1.55 ERA, 33-8 record, 501 strikeout, and that's with no junior year. She was also a field hockey player. So
a dozen
talented
young women,
a dozen talented young men, and sometime next week, we'll bring you two winners on with Mike, and
you'll have a
you'll
chance to listen to
their experiences from their 4 years of high school sports.
Absolutely. And that is the Billy Shoppy Awards. They are the top senior athletes in our area. And obviously, the area is ripe with a ton of talent. We're going to see some baseball talent, Tom. I know Ocean City's playing Mainland tomorrow. There was a time when a public school winning a state championship was almost unheard of.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. Baseball in particular. I mean, you're involved in it at a level, and it's just grown so much. You take a look at the colleges where these young men are going, and the some of them being drafted. It's grown so much. I don't know if it's the Mount Lake Trout Complex or what, but baseball in the Cape Atlantic League has never ever been better.
Yep, that's tomorrow, Ocean City Mainland. Today you've got St. Augustine and Holy Spirit. They're both playing for championships as well. So, the high school sports season is winding down. It was a very odd one, Tom. Probably one like we've never seen before. And I guess, kudos to everybody who got these seasons, up and running and were able to get through them.
Yeah, we got through them. As we said at the beginning, only here in the spring are we getting what we would call legitimate championships. They group teams strangely in some cases in some sports, and they didn't have the legitimate South Jersey champions in most of the fall and winter sports. Basketball didn't have any champions except the little division champions. It was a shame, but on the other hand, as you said, they got through it. They got a chance to show what they can do, and they made the best of it. And I guess they'll have a lot to talk about in their reunions throughout the year.
All right, they're the Billy Shoppy Award nominees. We'll have the winners next week. Tom Williams from Prime Events. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, Tom, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
You do the same. And those are the Shoppy Award nominees, and they are the top senior athletes in our area. We like to always highlight the top people who, worked hard over the 4 years. And, their careers are all coming to an end. And many of them, as he mentioned, it sounds like almost every single one are moving on to play at the next level. And some higher level than others. But guess what? Whatever level you can continue playing, continue to do it for as long as you love playing whatever game it is. Keep working hard at it, everybody out there, because you never know that day that it won't be able to happen anymore. And that day is a sad day. And then you know what you do? You take my chair and you start talking about it. That's when you realize I ain't got it no more. I'm going to start yakking about it. That's how it all started for me, man. When I was in college at West Virginia, I was out on the mound, and one day the arm just went boop. That was it. And at that moment, I said, all right, that's it for me. It's been a nice career. Thanks for playing. I went up into the booth, called baseball games, and here I am in 2021. I graduated in the year 2000. All right, Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, in the live video stream over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Coming up on the other side, Adam Kaplan, football at 4. The Eagles waived a quarterback. What's the reason behind that? They only have 2 in camp. A potential training camp star was also released. Adam has the details, plus the Eagles' assistant coaches. Each one of them kind of highlighted somebody that sticks out. Adam has insight on each one coming up next here on Football at 4, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN with Adam Kaplan from Inside the Birds. All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Dropped this morning, 6 a.m. A new one is out. The guys had some interesting things on some of the things that we will touch on today. We had a good one with Mosher yesterday. If you missed that, go back and check it out on our YouTube channel. And it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Adam Kaplan is here. He looks to be in a new location for this edition of Football at 4. Adam, what's going on, man?
Good to see you, Mike. Yeah, I'm in my upstairs office here. And by the way, Yale, what is the significance of wearing the Yale T-shirt? I'm surprised to see that today.
All right, so yesterday I had the Vanderbilt T-shirt on.
Oh.
It's was in Nashville, and I had there was no thing.
Yeah.
So every college campus that I have visited, I have a T-shirt from. So yesterday I had Vanderbilt on. Today I have Yale. I got a whole bunch of rando places, and people always say, what's this for? You didn't go there. I visited that campus, so I bought a T-shirt while I was there.
All right. Did you go to Louis' lunch?
I did not go to Louis' lunch, but I went to the pizza shop that it's the oldest pizza shop in the country. What's it called?
I know. It's my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite. It is the name is escape. How could it be? Frank Pepe's. Yeah,
Frank Pepe. Yep,
yeah.
Frank Pepe's. Now, I got a good Frank Pepe story, right? So there's two Frank Pepes, right?
Uh-huh.
There's the original, and then there's the new one that's around the corner. So
it's actually not – well, you're talking about the spot. Is it what you talking about the spot?
No, there's another Frank Pepe's. They built it. There's a newer one, right?
Well, they have like 5 of them. Go ahead.
Well, everyone's standing outside. The old one, there's this line out the door. So I say to my buddy, hey, there's another Frank Pepe's around the corner. The lady says, it's not the same oven. You got to.
Correct. That's the spot. It's called the spot. Yes, okay. It's connected to it. And then right down the street is, I guess, a relative who owns Sally's, which I've never been to. So that was when I was at ESPN, we had one in West Hartford, 25 minutes away. And then the one in New Haven was about 40 minutes from Bristol. But you're right, Mike. That oven is, what is it, early 1920s or something? Yep. Something like that. Unbelievable. You have the coal on that pizza is something that you're just not going to find. You have to get it.
It was outstanding. So there's the genesis of the Yale T-shirt. I was on my way to Newport, Rhode Island. We stopped off to go to Frank Pepe's, and I said, while we're here, we might as well tour the campus. We walked around Yale. I bought the T-shirt, and then we went to Newport, and what a great town Newport is. So,
yeah, Louis' lunch, by the way, what it is it's like a stand on the side of a street. The hamburgers, people love it. Now, I think it's for drunks, but quite frankly, it's at late at night. When I eat meat, I don't eat meat anymore. But when I did, I went there. They put it on white bread, okay? You don't put a burger on white bread. But people love it. I'll give it to them. They always have a line at night because people, when they're on the town, they like to drink and go get a burger.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, doing the keto, it's hard to find. So there's this bread that's keto bread that I can eat. So I have to eat my burgers with this bread now. But you're right. I don't like eating it without the bun, but I'm used to it. But if you're drunk, you probably don't know the difference. So, right? All right, Adam. So a couple things we want to dive into. We had a good segment yesterday. Really enjoyed it. And then right at the end, between that segment and then when we got to the end of the show, the Eagles made a couple interesting moves. Their assistant coaches had a lot to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on, but there's only 2 quarterbacks on the current roster. Jamie Newman was one of those guys that, at one point, he was one of the top-ranked quarterbacks in that class. He fell kind of down the list. And then the Eagles said, we're not even going to bring you to camp. So what's the deal there, and what are they going to do to fill that spot?
All right, Mike. So really the word around the league was for Newman, had he played last year, remember, he opted out and also transferred, which is you just don't see that. He might have been a 4th or 5th round pick had he played at Georgia and had a good year. But he had a lot of issues with his mechanics on tape. He has a good arm. He's got good size. He's a guy that more or less the Eagles saw as maybe a potential practice squad quarterback that they could develop. But from what I understand is he didn't do well. No matter what's been out there, some people are telling me that the reports that he was doing well. I can't comment on that. I can just tell you what I know. We did some reporting on this. He did not look good. I do not expect him back. Sometimes you cut a guy early. You let the agent know, hey, listen, we need to make this roster move. We need to create some space on a roster, but we want to bring him back for training camp. That's not what I understand of the situation. From barring a surprise, he won't be back. And you're right. They're down to 2 quarterbacks. They're going to sign another one, I'm told. I don't think they're going to sign two, but I know that they're going to sign one. And it could be the guys to keep an eye on. They all fit the West Coast offense. They're guys who've played in it because the Eagles will run a version of a West Coast offense. Sean Mannion, who was drafted by the Rams, and Sean McVay coached them. That's one guy. Nick Mullins, who played against the Eagles last year when the Eagles went into Santa Clara and beat the Niners, who played in West Coast offense. So those are two guys to keep an eye on now that we're looking at past OTAs, now that OTAs are over.
Yeah, Mannion with the Rams, as you mentioned, and Mullins with the 49ers. So two guys who have some starting experience, actually, not just some random college guy with nothing. That would be interesting to bring some guys in. But they're going to have to bring someone in. You can't roll into camp with just these two guys, correct?
Right. No, they're going. I was told they're definitely adding a quarterback, and those are the quarterbacks I was told to keep an eye on. They may work them out. I don't know how they're going to do this, but you don't need to work out quarterbacks anymore. You go by their tape. But Mullins has decent starting experience because of Jimmy Garoppolo's injury. He was the guy that they found as an undrafted free agent. When you watch him throw the ball, you scratch your head sometimes, but he gets it there. Now, the Eagles got to him last year, if you remember that Sunday night game where Jannard Avery went off. That was his really only good game as an Eagle. But Jannard Avery, by the way, is doing really well. He did well in OTAs. Moshe and I we're previewing linebackers inside the Birds for our Monday morning show, and believe me, we got some information on Avery.
As long as and that's good, by the way, Monday for the Inside the Birds podcast, listen for that. As long as they don't bring in Ben DiNucci, I'm okay with the third.
I think he's still with Dallas, by the way.
Hopefully, Dallas can still have him. Trayvon Grimes, I felt like he was going to be the Paul. What was the guy's name?
Paul Turner.
Paul Turner. We've had a plethora of Eagle wide receivers. It used to be Mr. Lehigh, right? You used to have a guy was like Hank Baskett was Mr. Lehigh.
Oh my God!
Receivers would come out of nowhere in training.
Nay Brown,
right?
Nay Brown.
So Trayvon Grimes feels like that guy, and yesterday waived injured. Give us the update on what that means, and could he be back?
So what happened was you cannot put a undrafted free agent or rookie on IR right now. So you have to waive him injured. And if he passes through waivers, he actually went on waivers yesterday. So right now, since we're past 4 o'clock, he could have been claimed off waivers. I doubt that he would be since he's injured. He goes on injury reserve today if he's not claimed. And the Eagles have two choices. They leave him on injury reserve for the entire season, or they reach an injury settlement with him. He cannot return for the roster for a specific amount of weeks to whatever the injury, with the language in the injury settlement is. And then they could bring him back, and they would only sign him to the practice squad in season. My understanding was they wanted to see him through here. They wanted him to go to training camp and see if he could push for that 5th receiver spot. That's the best he can do. Now that's out of the running. So right now on their roster, they only have 8 receivers. They're obviously going to add 2 more. They had 10. They cut the other kid. Was the former quarterback Khalil Tate, who was with them last year. He was a major project. That didn't work out. Tell you what, the Eagles and the Broncos, youngest receiver corps in the league. The Eagles do not even have a vested veteran, which is almost unheard of. So let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens here with wide receiver. I do wonder if they're going to add someone for training camp.
They could have moved Tate to quarterback at least as a camp arm.
That's true. Khalil Tate. It's true. That's true.
Or if they want to use Greg Ward, right? They got more quarterbacks than they know what to do with, even though they only have 2. All right. Let me get your take on Aaron Moorhead and some of the things he had to say, because you just mentioned this is a very young room. One guy I'm interested in to hear what you know about is Travis Fulgham, because what are we supposed to think about this guy? Was he the guy that gave you – he was the best receiver in football numerically for a 4-week stretch. So can he be that guy? Can he be a serviceable guy? Or is he the guy that was completely out of the rotation?
Let's talk about the positive first before we get to the things that need to improve. He's really gifted. Moshe made a great point on our show this morning. He's really the only receiver in the rotation of size. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was not in the rotation. Right now, to me, he's on the outside looking in. He needs to earn a roster spot. He's obviously going to go to training camp, but he's got to earn his way. There's certainly an opportunity for Arcega-Whiteside, but Fulgham, 6'2.5", really good size. Could run for a guy's size. A good route runner, improved as a route runner. He's a little bit older, by the way, a little bit older than I expected. In fact, he is the oldest receiver in the roster. He turns 26, believe it or not, in September. Not that that's old, but he was a little bit older as a rookie at 23. He did not handle the situation with Alshon Jeffrey coming back. Moshe and I reported this last November. Because we were wondering, if you remember, I think you probably asked us, why is he not playing? And we were dumbfounded. And yeah, Alshon Jeffrey, remember, they were gonna take some of Fulgham's time away, but Fulgham his approach to practice needed to be better, we were told. And Aaron Moorhead, the receivers coach, did talk about it. So I just think, from what I understand, is he just needs to be a more consistent practice player. Because as you know, they pretty much buried him on the depth chart. After Jeffrey came back, he barely played. And then also we did first report that he had ankle surgery after the season. So maybe that had something to do with it. But you know what's odd about it? He never was on the injury report. I went back and checked. So maybe he was just a minor thing that became worse. I don't know. But I'm told he's fine. So right now, when you look at it, he's still, look, they have three receivers who are vying for two spots in terms of starting. Fulgham, Rader, and Smith. Smith obviously should be starting as a high first-round pick they traded up for. Fulgham should be their size receiver or their X, although I know more coaches I talk to might downplay the X receiver and the Z receiver. They just need somebody with size, and I certainly get that. And Rager will probably see more time in the slot than he did before, and that would not, obviously, whenever they want Rager to play in the slot, that knocks Greg Ward off the field, which is fine. But I think there's going to be a really good training camp battle for specific roles there. I think that will be more defined as we get through training camp.
And did Moorhead comment at all on where they view Arcega-Whiteside?
He did comment on it, but there wasn't anything specific. He said he did say, though. Now, I don't know what he meant by it, because Moorhead was not going to criticize anybody, but he said JJ had a tough year, but he wasn't into specifics. A lot of these coaches didn't want to criticize. Like, if a reporter asked a leading question, they may have acknowledged that the guy was struggling, but they wouldn't say specifically what it was. But yeah, he did talk about Arcega-Whiteside. Moorhead did.
Adam, we've talked about it last week and you mentioned that Mailata you think is the betting favorite, heavy betting favorite. Did Jeff Stoutland tip his hand at all to what's going to happen at left tackle?
No, he didn't. He acknowledged that it's the open competition, which we all knew was happening, and we know that Andre Dillard's back. Dillard, we talked about last week, had a good attitude. Certainly, he's got a chip on his shoulder, and it's the best man can win. That's really what he said. Now, based on the way that Mailata played last season, Mike, he's the favorite. Doesn't mean he's going to win it. He's another guy. He's now got to show he can do it in training camp with real competition. Last summer, we had no offseason. Mailata, if people forget about this, he was on the COVID list during training camp for 2 weeks. So it took him a little bit while to get his bearings and his feet wet, so to speak, and get right physically. But once he did, the way it was explained to me was that the Pittsburgh and Baltimore games really convinced the Eagles that this kid could be special. To do it against two of the NFL's best defense is the way Mailata played. But again, he's new to the football. This is only his fourth year of playing American football. We only know him from rugby. And he first put a helmet on in April of 2018. So let's not go crazy thinking he's going to be great. But he's got a ton of upside. But he's got to be consistent. He's got to do it day to day. And he's got to do it in training camp.
I know this sounds wild, Adam, but I've kind of compared it to like what Joel Embiid, just at the size freak who you don't see anybody. He's 6'8", 350 pounds. And Embiid just had zero experience and came over. He was the best player in Kansas when he was a freshman that Bill Self ever saw after playing, a year of high school basketball. So if Mailata continues to, I'm not, Joel Embiid possibly the MVP of the league down the road. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame left tackle, but just the size and athletic ability kind of reminds me of a guy with the lack of experience coming in at such an inexperience having success.
Yeah, Mike, by the way, he's well over 350. Yeah, Mailata's way bigger than that.
He's like 380, right? He's like 380, 390.
We're not sure. Jeff and I are trying to, we've heard things. We're trying to confirm exactly what his weight is. He's heavier than he's ever been, but his body fat, I know this, we were checking into it last year. Let's say he was 370, 375. He was in great shape last summer. So I don't know. I've never seen it. I've covered this business for 21 years. Never seen a story like this. Never seen anyone look like this. At his first practice in 18 at OTAs, I remember being there, and I know he had no idea what he was doing. But seeing his footwork, I'm like, okay, there's something here with this guy. I don't know if he'll make it. And then you see what he is now, and you go, oh, boy, there's something here.
Not to kind of like, how do you find that guy? Who tips you off to draft? Like, was someone going to draft him that they needed to draft him? If you go back to, why would they draft him? Who else knew about? Like, that story is kind of odd looking back at it now.
So here's what I remember. Okay, here's what I remember. Now this is 18 spring of 18. I'm fairly certain. And again, this is when I found out about it after the draft because I wanted to know. I was like, who is this guy? So they sent Jeff Stoutland to us. He had a pro day. Not every team attended because he's a rugby player. Because you could just get the tape of pro days, but Stoutland went there and he was convinced. When he came back, he told Harry Roseman about it, and Roseman, to his credit, he doesn't know. Look, you should always listen to your coaches, but in that building, Jeff Stoutland's voice is the voice of God when it comes to the offensive line. Nothing happens without Stoutland saying yes when it comes to the offensive line, pretty much. And he kind of convinced them they should trade up for him, and they did. And even if Milau's a backup for his career, this is a hell of a 7th-round pick. Really is so far.
Let's get your take because I think last week we had Avonte Maddox in the slot and they had Michael Jacquet out on the outside here. So yesterday, you're talking about this secondary. I know they're going to try to put a good spin on it, but give us a feel of what they think about of the guys who are here, not named Slay. What do they think about that group?
Yeah, I think you just have to understand when reporters do not get to see the OTA rules have changed with the Eagles, and other teams are doing this. They're only giving them, 15, 20 minutes to watch warm-ups. So they're not even – and remember, Eagles aren't doing 7-on-7 or 11-on-11s. They didn't do any. That was their agreement with Nick Sirianni. So these reporters have no idea, unless they got intel from the club, where exactly they line up later in practice. So I wouldn't read anything into Maddox playing – slot or whatever practice the reporters saw. I'd read into it if in training camp, if he's primarily in the slot, that's a very big problem. If Jacquet, by the way, that's the correct way to pronounce his name, I was told. So I've butchered it I don't know how many times. But Jacquet, if he is starting on the outside by like mid-August, if he's the number one corner opposite Slay, which I don't see happening. If McPherson can't beat him out, they're going to add a veteran at some point. If that veteran doesn't win that starting job opposite Slay, this is going to be a problem.
No doubt about it. I think everybody's waiting on that. That seems to be the final piece to the offseason puzzle is who's going to play that other spot. Because I would imagine, other than left tackle, there's not a lot of starting jobs up for grabs. That one corner.
Well, actually, we're going to get into this on our Monday show. The starting strong side linebacker job for the Eagles is open. Eric Wilson will definitely be one of their starting linebackers. Alex Singleton's not guaranteed to start. We'll see what happens there. That job's open. Left tackle, you're correct. The receiver rotation is definitely open. They won't have that set till I don't know how long. That thing will take its place once you get through training camp. So that definitely is open.
All right. Listen to the new Inside the Birds podcast you dropped this morning. The one on Monday drops at 6, and you just got a little tease of some of the stuff that's coming up there. Adam Kaplan, Jeff Mosher give you Inside the Birds Mondays and Thursdays during the offseason. And, of course, every day during football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash. All right, Adam. Good to see you, pal.
Thank you, Mike. See you.
And he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Good addition there. Of course, we always bring it to you here at 4 o'clock during football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live at 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. All you need to do is search 973 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and you can watch the show live, be a part of the live stream. When we come back, these are things that happened on this date. We call it Do You Remember? One of them involves Atlantic City. One of them involves a 15-year-old, and one involves a 43-year-old. How about that? Stick around to find out. Do you remember? Is next. So the Phillies had a lead in the 8th, 1-0. We head to the 9th. They're down 3-1. Odubel Herrera missed time to jump, and Freddie Freeman's ball went over the fence. Can't really blame him for not catching a home run ball, but he probably could have caught it. And then Jose Alvarado came in the game and has promptly walked the entire team. It is like that scene from Bugs Bunny where everybody just keeps going around the bases, wild pitches. Look, we talked earlier about the Rays. The Rays just don't give up on a guy that throws 102 miles an hour. There's a reason why they give up on a guy that can throw 102 miles an hour. If you can't throw strikes at this level, you could throw 102 all you want. You don't belong. And the Phillies have a go-to reliever that doesn't belong. You can't count. You can tell me you're going to count on Jose Alvarado in Game 3 of a World Series? Of course you're not. But that's what they have because they couldn't get it themselves, so they had to get it from someone's scrap heap. And I digress. All right, Josh Eddings, my producer.
Howdy.
These are the things that happened on this day.
Looking forward to it.
June the 10th.
Certainly got to be better than the Phillies game.
Has to be. On this day, June the 10th, 1944, relief pitcher. I'd rather have him come in the game. At 15 years old, Joe Nuxhall debuts for the Cincinnati Reds. He's the youngest player in Major League Baseball history. They needed him because they didn't have enough players. So they brought this 15-year-old in. He debuts, becomes an all-star, and then later a broadcaster. Can you imagine a 15-year-old playing in the majors now?
Is that the equivalent of like the Zamboni driver coming in for a hockey goalie?
That's right, the goalies. Some of these 15-year-olds nowadays, though, they throw hard enough, some of them.
Well, you would know. You see them. So
right?
All
I
the
mean,
time.
you get some of these pitchers at 15 years old throwing 90 miles. I mean, yeah, probably in the like really, really, really outstanding.
Well, who would you rather have out there, Alvarado or Petty for me?
Petty at least throws strikes, I can tell you that much. And he throws 102, so yeah, I'd probably take him at this point. This day, 1981, Pete Rose ties Stan Musial's NL record, 3,630 hits. Pete Rose, pretty good hitter.
Yeah, he was pretty good. Pretty talented, scrappy.
Now, Pete Rose, would he be a guy that would fit in today's game? He wasn't a big home run hitter.
He wasn't, but I feel like he hit so well he would have found a spot for him. I think the question would have been what position would he have played, because he played, 4 different positions in his
career? He played first, he played third, he played the outfield.
Right. He played both corner outfield positions, if I remember correctly.
I mean, he had a very good on-base percentage, so he was a pretty big OBP guy, but he was not a home run guy. So you're wondering,
But he was a guy who hit with runners in scoring position. They just fouled the ball off the umpire's face.
That sucks.
That's the kind of game we got going on here.
1989, Joe Dumas scored 31 points. Dennis Rodman snagged 19 rebounds, and people didn't complain about him the next day, believe it or not. And Isaiah Thomas made 8 assists as the Pistons beat the Lakers 114-110 at the Great Western Forum. They took a 3-0 lead in the NBA Finals. The Pistons ended up sweeping the Lakers. That, at the time, was thought of to be this huge upset. Remember?
Yeah. It was massive because people assumed that the Celtics and Lakers dynasties were going to go on forever.
Yeah. I remember that Pistons team. You know, that was one of the teams that, you thought at the time, they didn't have superstars. The Lakers had Showtime. They had Isaiah Thomas. But, Joe Dumars would be, I don't know, who's Joe Dumars the equivalent of, now?
Wow, that's a good question.
Give me an old head out there. Joe Dumars in today's game would be who?
I mean, the problem was, I was going to say DeMar DeRozan, but Dumars actually could hit 3-pointers. But you can't say
They
DeMar
didn't shoot
DeRozan.
threes all that much back then, but yeah.
But he could actually hit them. Dumars.
Yeah, would he be? He wasn't a huge scorer. He scored 16 a game in his career.
Yeah, he was a guy who played very good defense, so.
Oh, that's what, if you thought Joe Dumars, you'd say defense, but he could score, he could shoot.
Yeah, he was a guy that could catch and shoot.
Think about it, though. 6'3", he played back then. It was a shooting guard at 6'3".
Right.
Like him and Isaiah were a small backcourt.
Wait, so maybe he's like a better shooting version of Marcus Smart?
That's not bad.
It's about the same
You're very
size.
proud of yourself.
Well, it's not every
The
day.
look on his face was like,
It's not every day I get a compliment from Mike Gill. I mean, come on.
you got to bring me something. Give me a good one.
I
That's
gave
a
you
good
one.
That's a good one. A better shooting version of Marcus Smart. That's not bad.
They're about the
Anybody
same
out there
size.
got a better one? Joe Dumars. Who would Joe Dumars be today's game? Hard to find a 6'3" off guard in today's game.
Yeah, Marcus Smart's what, 6'4"? I think 6'3" himself. So
That's a good one.
I've actually was saying the other day, I think the Celtics should try to find a way to dump Kemba Walker's garbage contract and just make Marcus Smart the starting point guard.
They're trying. Kemba's not happy about it.
Kemba will get over it.
Thought that was a good signing, but it's not turned out to be so
He
good.
just can't stay healthy.
Can't say it. Yeah, if he was healthy, he probably would have been.
The Phillies just scored on a Reese Hoskins opposite way ground ball to the hole.
Don't trade him. He hits opposite field ground balls. 1996, goaltender Patrick Waugh made 63 saves, and Huey Krupp scored the winning goal in the third overtime as Colorado beats Florida 1-0 to win the Stanley Cup. The Avalanche won the title in their very first season following the move to Denver from Quebec. Can you imagine you're Quebec? You're this Canadian franchise. They probably love that team up there, proud as can be, and they move to Denver, and then they win the cup.
Yeah, lovely.
When did the Nordiques ever win the Stanley Cup as the Quebec Nordiques?
Never.
Right. And
It's like the
leave.
Browns moving to Baltimore and becoming the Ravens.
Right. And then they leave and win the cup the first year that they're gone.
The Ravens
kick in the scrotum.
The Ravens got 2 Lombardi trophies. The Browns could never get to the Super Bowl.
That's devastating. That's devastating. All right, what else we got today?
I mean, how many times has Patrick Waugh ended up on these lists? It was like every week we get one Patrick Waugh reference on this. Do you remember?
It's a good question. He was like, I asked who's today's Joe Dumars. I wouldn't ask who's today's Patrick Waugh because there isn't one.
No, there definitely is not. Because the goaltender is just not the same anymore.
Yeah.
At all. It even, think about this. One of the best goaltenders in the NHL is Marc-Andre Fleury. He has been usurped for younger players not once, but twice in his career. And he's going to the Hall of Fame one day. If Marc-Andre Fleury played in any other era, he would be an everyday goalie like those guys in the 90s, early 2000s. Now today it's, we played him too much. Let's put in Robert Leonard. And then the Avs score 6 goals against him. They got to pull him.
All right, let me get a couple more in. By the way, Todd ranked today at 5. Todd. He wants to fight with me on something.
Oh, jeez.
2006, Bernard Hopkins won the 12-round unanimous decision over the ring light heavyweight champion, Antonio. What was his nickname?
Antonio Tarver?
Yeah.
I remember Hopkins' nickname was the Executioner.
Yep, I didn't ask that.
I remember Tarver's.
He was, what was his name in the Rocky movie? It's like a porno name, like Lightning Steel or something. Lexington Steel or something like that. What was his name? So he beat Tarver at Boardwalk Hall. Hopkins was 41 at the time. I think I was at that fight. Pretty sure I was.
Been in a lot of fights. So.
Any fight at Boardwalk Hall, I'm there. I love boxing at Boardwalk Hall.
The Magic Man.
What was his name, though?
Well, that was his nickname.
I got that. Oh, okay. I thought you meant in the movie Rocky.
No, you asked me first what was his nickname.
Yes.
Now I'm going to find.
Okay, I thought you were giving me the answer to what his name was in Rocky. Antonio, the Magic Man. How's my Michael Buffer?
It's okay.
Joe Dumars, Kyle DeBray says he wouldn't play. That's not true.
That's ridiculous.
Rodney says A.V. Bradley. Kyle DuBray then says George Hill. How about Kyle Lowry for Joe Dumars?
Lowry's a little short.
Lowry's more of a point guard.
Lowry's barely 6 foot, too. By the way,
Mason the Line Dixon.
yes, I just found
Brian
it.
Nardelli. Thank you.
Good job, Brian.
Mason
The line.
the Line
Dixon.
Yeah, he was the champ.
Didn't Jamie Dixon win a championship in Maryland?
I don't think so. He was at Pitt.
No.
Jamie Dixon, the basketball coach.
Or Juan. I'm thinking of Juan Dixon.
The one. I don't know if he won a championship. Jamie Dixon was the coach at Pitt.
I remember who it was Steve Blake and another guard at Maryland who won the championship with Gary Williams.
All right, next one I got here is 43-year-old Omar Vizquel homers off Max Scherzer. He joins Ted Williams, Willie McCovey, and Ricky Henderson as the only players to have a home run off in 4 different decades. The first Vizquel dinger came off Jimmy Key in 1989. Jimmy Key was great, by the way. And his final came off of Jeremy Bonderman from the Tigers, who was 6 when Vizquel made his debut. Now, when you think of home run hitters, Vizquel's not one of them.
Absolutely not. By the way, the Phillies got a walk-off.
Was it Luke Williams?
No. It was
Gene
Segura.
Segura.
Segura deep ball to the gap off the wall. 2 runs scored.
Wow. So they're down 3. They're up 1-0. They go down 3-1, and they end up winning that game. They're getting blasted on Twitter. People calling them this and that and the other thing, and they come back and win.
You ready to call them the cardiac kids?
They're great. They don't need to trade Reese Hoskins. Keep them and build this team around these guys. Last one today, okay? Actually, I have another one that I want to add. It's not sports related, though. 2016, Steph Curry scored 38 points. Golden State beats Cleveland 108-97. They take a 3-1 lead in the finals. But LeBron and the Cavs would come back to win in 7 games. It's one of the more epic chokes.
Hey, man. The Warriors, they got a little too up on themselves. You know, they got a little too overconfident. And then Draymond
I can't believe they lost that series. They needed
did
Durant.
themselves.
Went and got Durant.
By the way, Juan Dixon was on that Maryland team that won the national championship.
With Steve Blake?
Yep, with Steve Blake. Also, remember Chris Wilcox?
Yes, I do.
I remember Dixon won a championship.
Jamie Dixon was the Pitt coach, and then he went to
TCU.
TCU, yeah, because he went to school there.
Correct.
It was a weird move. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Is he still there?
Yeah.
Okay. On this day, 14 years ago,
14 years ago.
Tony Soprano was, we think, shot and killed at the Holston Diner somewhere up in North Jersey on the show Sopranos. So what happened to Tony Soprano? Does anybody think there was anything other than he got shot?
So I've always said that HBO needs to do like a follow-up to that. You can call it like what happened to Tony Soprano. People would be losing their minds to watch that.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Well, aren't they doing this movie?
I mean, they're doing a movie.
But I don't think it's going to have anything to do with that. I think that
Right.
they're supposed to be younger or something.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a prequel, I think. Like before he became the Sopranos guy, it was before that.
So I saw a lot of people talking about this on Twitter today. Was the ending a good ending or a horrible ending?
I don't think it was either. I think that the writers did a great job at leaving the ending open-ended because maybe they were thinking that maybe they would have like some sort of sequel down the road.
Yeah, I feel like the people who don't want to think for themselves and need the ending to be told to them hated it because they need someone to tell them something. The people who have an open mind and want it to come up like
with their own scenarios.
Right. Like I liked it. It was like, this whole like, and you're like, wait, what? And then you had all these chants to kind of like do what we're doing.
Right. Like I like the fact that it was different. To me, like another show that did a similar ending that was very similar was White Collar years later. The ending of the show is basically Neil Cafferty walking off. Like you see him walking away. You don't know what happens to him. Does he stay in France? Does he come back to America? Is he still working with the FBI? Nobody knows. But like they just leave it so open. It allows you to let your mind wander and be creative with it.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. Oh, so that's what happened on this day.
That's a show you should watch, is White Collar.
I probably should.
I think it's on Netflix now.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm looking for a new Netflix show. You know, the new Bachelorette started on Monday.
Okay.
So now I'm kind of into that.
Yeah, put White Collar on your list.
Yeah.
White Collar, for those who don't know, White Collar is a show about a con artist. He's like one of the greatest white-collar criminals to ever live. And the FBI recruits him to help them catch other criminals, and they use his hubris against him.
That's good. I like that. By the way, somebody texted, how about that Alvarado big win? He did get credited for the win. And by the way, he didn't give up the home run to Freeman. That was Neris.
That was Neris, yeah.
And then Alvarado came in and promptly gave up 2 more.
Yeah, he threw 7 straight balls.
Alvarado, he's got this great arm. He's better than what they had last year. But the fact of the matter is, you can't count on him.
To say you had better than you had last year is like saying you had better than dirt. Good job.
That's true. Historically bad last year. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Frank Close actually tweeted, I'm assuming the people complaining about Neris and Alvarado entering the game prefer that David Hale pitched. Not necessarily. I think it's just a sign that this team just doesn't have enough. It's more, I can't believe in you. I can't hitch my wagon to this team this summer because I don't think that any of these, I can't trust Alvarado. I know Hale sucks, but I can't trust Alvarado.
Right. And it's not that you would rather have somebody else. It's the fact that you just realize that everyone in that bullpen has question marks.
Maybe we'll get Frank on here. I want to bring this up to him, see if we can reach out to him. Stick around. All right, this is the Sports Bats live on 97.3 ESPN. So the Phillies come back and win today. They take 2 of 3 from the Braves, so good for them. 30-31 on the season. And why is that significant? Well, it's not hugely significant because both these teams are kind of middling in the middle. But it was significant. It's not something to just like, hey, push this to the side. But with the win today over the Braves, the Phillies now move themselves into second place in the National League East over the Braves by a half a game. So that 2 out of 3, they jump up. Braves are third. Mets are first. 3.5 back. Hey, look, maybe they stay afloat. Maybe they just kind of hang on here. They get themselves healthier, which they're about as healthy as they've been right now. JT, Harper, they're all back after missing some time. Maybe they can start playing some better baseball. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. That gets them the nice series win against the Braves. And checking out what they've got coming up next, you got the Yankees coming to town, and the Yankees have been struggling as well. It's a team that can't score for you-know-what. They're just an awful offensive team. So maybe this is a series that you can get 2 out of 3. You know, you've got the Dodgers and then San Francisco. So this is a really tough stretch where you had Atlanta, New York. By the way, this is the second Friday coming up tomorrow that the Phillies don't play. I mean, the Sixers play tomorrow night, so nobody cares about the Phillies not playing. But still, this is like the second Friday. I've never seen a baseball season that a team didn't play on a Friday, and now this is the second time they're not playing on a Friday. And then Phillies are going out west. They'll play the Dodgers and the Giants before they come back home to play Washington for 2. And then the Mets. So you've got to get to that Mets series, hanging around at least where you are after you play New York, L.A., and San Francisco. Because Miami's coming up at the end of June. You haven't been able to beat them at all. You've got the makeup game with Cincinnati in there before you get to July. San Diego, Chicago, Boston to start the month of July. So the Phillies get a much needed win today. Congratulations to them. And Frank Close, by the way, he will join us at 5:25 tonight to talk more about this game and what has happened with this team. And I'm going to ask him, if you want to fix this team, if you want to do something to just kind of change the complexion of this team, is Rhys Hoskins the guy, or does he have a better plan? Because that's the only plan I can come up with that makes you significantly change the complexion of this team. We were talking during Do You Remember, Joe Dumars. Who is the Joe Dumars of today? Now, Josh brought up Marcus Smart. I thought that was a pretty good one. Does anybody have a comparison of who Joe Dumars would be in today's game? Now, some of the comparisons, when you look at today's game that he mentioned, which was Marcus Smart, some of the people, somebody said George Hill. I think Joe Dumars is a better scorer than George Hill is, right? He's a better scorer there. Who else was mentioned over here in the stream? Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is an interesting one. Kyle Lowry, though, is more of the point guard. Joe Dumars was more of the off guard. It was weird, though, because Joe Dumars is 6'3", and he was playing the off guard. You don't see that anymore. What about man, he's a tough one. You mentioned his 3-point shooting. How about, I didn't realize this. Joe Dumars 1 year averaged 7 3-point attempts per game and shot 40% from 3. You didn't see guys shooting 3. This is 1998, 1999. He was shooting 7 threes a game.
People forget also that Pistons team, they ran an offense that was very inside-outside. So there were times that you had Dumars and Bill Laimbeer on the perimeter with Isaiah Thomas because they would run this, this high-low post pick-and-roll game. So you would have Bill Laimbeer once in a while just pop out and shoot a 3, and you're like, what the heck's going on out here?
Some people compared him to Dwayne Wade. I think Wade was a better scorer.
Wade's a better scorer. Wade's a more dynamic athlete. Wade's a better ball handler. Wade is a superstar player. Dumars was an all-star.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Wade, I don't think was nearly as good a defensive player as Dumars.
No, but Wade was an exceptionally better offensive player.
Yeah, that was a good one, though. How about C.J. McCollum?
Dumars' defense is way better than C.J. McCollum.
That's
though.
true.
McCollum's defense, it's solid.
They're a bad defensive team, by the way.
McCollum individually
That's
is a
one of the
solid
things
player.
that Rank and I are going to battle on today, I
Oh, yeah?
imagine. We've been battling about this, because he hates Tyrone Lue, all right? He thinks he's the worst coach ever. I said, well, he won a title.
Right, it can't be that bad.
Well, I'm just saying, my stance on the coach, and he thinks the coach is very important. I said, well, Lue won the title. You hate him, right? You don't like Vogel.
He won a title.
He won the title. You don't like Vogel. He says, well, they had LeBron. He had LeBron James. That doesn't count. I said, well, yeah, so did Lue.
Mike, I brought this up the other day. Name me a coach who has won a championship who did not have a future Hall of Famer on his team. You can't.
Yeah, duh. In the NBA,
people act like
by the way,
who's
the best? Who is recognized as the best coach in the NBA
right now, or all time? Like
just in the last general 10 years.
I guess it'd be Popovich, Spoelstra,
Popovich, right?
Yeah.
What has Popovich done? As soon as he lost Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, Kawhi, is Popovich now the best coach in the league? I'm not saying he's a bad coach.
Right.
I'm just asking. When people ask who was the best coach in the NBA, Popovich.
Right.
Well, now Popovich doesn't have those Hall of Fame players, and all of a sudden, he ain't so good anymore. Is it?
Right.
Because his talent isn't
and
very
that's the thing.
good.
People act like there's these coaches out there who are all elevating these mediocre, average, okay rosters. It doesn't happen in the NBA. This isn't football.
No, but the point you bring up is give me an NBA coach who won a title that didn't have Hall of Fame level players on it.
Even that Pistons team with Larry Brown, at least two of those guys are going in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Well, they had Rip Hamilton.
They had Ben
Rasheed
Wallace.
By the way.
Ben Wallace is Defensive Player of the Year.
By the way, yeah, Ben Wallace, isn't he in the Hall of Fame?
I think he's been on the ballot a couple times.
Okay.
But Rasheed Wallace probably getting the Basketball Hall of Fame too. And then you had Big Shot Chauncey Billups.
Yeah. No, I was talking about it. I said, Popovich is the best coach in the league, right? It's funny. You take away his best players, and now all of a sudden the Spurs are 8 seeds.
Right.
Does that make him a lousy coach all of a sudden?
He's an idiot. The hair.
Well, he hates Stotts. And I said, Stotts is going to get the job in Indiana.
Probably.
And he said, why do these guys keep getting jobs? Like, why?
Well, that's another conversation.
Yep. So, all right, we'll battle on that coming up on the other side. We'll get his thoughts on these NBA playoffs and more. It's the Rank Report with Todd Rank next. All right, time now for our Rank Report. Todd Rank is here as we got a lot to dive into on this Sports Bash Thursday here on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? If you are just getting off of work and driving home, well, the Phillies came back and won today in come-from-behind fashion. They blew the lead in the ninth. They came back in the bottom of the ninth to win it. They take 2-3 from the Braves and are now in second place in National League East play. But we got a lot of NBA playoffs to get into and more of the Sixers and the Hawks tomorrow night. We got all that for you here on 97.3 ESPN. Tonight we've got Bucks and Nets, Sixers, Hawks tomorrow. And right now, there he is, our former co-host of the Sports Bash, Todd Rank, is back for another edition of the Rank Report here, where we got a lot to we've been battling the last. We don't agree on much these last couple of days. Hold on, man. You got to turn your mic on. There you go. It's on your side. There you go.
Yeah, it was on my side. Can we both agree, Mike? Good to see you, buddy. Can we agree, though, that the women's college softball, that there needs to be an investment in that? Because I've been thoroughly invested in that over the last 2 weeks.
You know what's funny? Like, they wait until the World Series to put that on TV. Like, no one watches it all year. And now it's like the Little League World Series. They put that thing on, and everybody's all of a sudden, that's all they're watching. Last night, 2 nights ago, we're watching the Sixers game going back and forth, and then he throws in, well, this Oklahoma team comes back.
I mean, it's funny because, there's the baseball World Series too. I'm more invested in the college women's softball when it comes, but to your point, it is literally like the Little League World Series. For these 2 weeks, I've been locked in.
Well, to be fair, there's so much more action happening in the women's softball. Like, there's a hit, they don't strike out, they're just bing, bang, boom, bum. There's always action happening in that game.
And they do have better storylines too. I mean, this Oklahoma team, it's a behemoth. I mean, this team has Coach of the Year, Freshman of the Year, Player of the Year, you name it, 12 All-Americans. I mean, nobody should even come close to this team. By the way, they lost 2 games the entire season. They played 50 games. They were 48-2. And now you're asking in double elimination for a team to beat them twice? I mean, it's just simply not going to happen. And we're on the precipice that they're about to win this national championship.
You believe they are akin to the UConn women's basketball team?
They will go down in folklore as one of the greatest women's softball teams in college ever. And this will be not 1, not 2, not 3. This will be their 4th World Series in this decade. That's a dynasty, my friend.
You're invested.
I was locked in. I almost missed this conversation today because I was locked in.
I know.
That game.
Josh just said to me as we were getting ready, the 5 o'clock game, he said, well, where's Todd? And I said, I was about to text you. And he says, oh, there he is. I mean, I got the Phillies game on back here over here. You're watching that women's softball.
Well, if anybody's on and can see the background, my TV, that's the women's college softball right behind me.
I'd like to get a bracket together for that. Maybe we do a little something with that.
Oh, that would be a lot of fun, actually. We need to do that because there is some great story. JMU, I was rooting for the underdog. Right. They made a nice run. But
they were up 1-0 on that Oklahoma, weren't they?
Well, they beat them in the opening game. But because of that double elimination, Oklahoma went into the losers bracket, and they just wiped out everybody in the losers bracket.
Well, they went 48-2 and lost to James Madison,
who was unranked.
Well, right, I know. By the way, I took a trip to James Madison once. It was one of the worst visits I ever took.
Was that prior to college to go to college?
No, I was in college. We went to visit a friend. We went on Thursday night. We were going to say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and come back Sunday. We got there Thursday. We left on Saturday morning because we had such a poor, it was one of the worst places.
So is it that the experience?
There's nothing to do there. I mean, you're coming from Morgantown. The places are open till 4 o'clock in the morning. They got after parties. They got underground bars. I mean, that place closes at like midnight. And so it's a Friday, and me and my buddies, we're like, all right, we're ready to go. It's noon. We rolling through the bar. It's not open. They don't know what's going on. Well, they were like shell-shocked by what we were bringing to the house. And at like 11 o'clock, they were cleaning up and ready to go home. We said, what are you talking about?
Maybe JMU is a little more concentrated on the education aspect of college, more so than Morgantown.
It's a nice campus. I'll give them that. All right, man. So let's get into this Sixers-Hawks series a little bit here because right? Back and forth they go. And we were talking beforehand. I said, look, this Hawks team is pretty good. People just don't watch them enough. You know, they were only on national TV 3 times in Trae Young's career so far. So people just don't know a lot about this team. But I said they're pretty good, man. They shoot the ball. They got a lot of depth. And they're a tough matchup for the Sixers because they're very perimeter oriented. So I think this is still going to be – I think this is going to be a back and forther, man.
Well, and I also think the Sixers fans are starting to watch and see what the Hawks can do, right? I mean, Trae Young is Trae Young. Anybody who didn't know much about him, they know a lot about him now. And again, he brings a kind of an arrogance as a young kid. He brings a little bit of a cockiness, but that's what he feeds off of, right? So he feeds off of the negative energy of the crowd. Now they're going to go home. They got one of the two. And I mean, to your point, I think this is going probably 7 games. I've now in my text thread with you, I've told you Hawks in 5. And I'll be honest to the listeners, and I'll tell you straight up, because I'm concerned, Mike, if the Sixers aren't able to pull one in Atlanta in these next 2, you know, you're looking at an uphill battle at 3-1. And I just see the Hawks as a team. When you even watch game 2, Mike, and yes, they got blown out by the end of the game, but they even made those runs mid-game where they don't ever seem to be, for a young team, actually, they don't seem nervous. Like when you're down 20, you give up and say, I'm done for this. Because I told you in the text, I thought they were done 6 minutes in, and they just kept coming back, and they kept coming back. And to your point, the outside shooting allows them to come back in games.
Well, and I said after game 1, they made 23s, and I said they needed every bit of those 23s. That, to me, is the problem. They need 23s to win this series. They need 23s. They can't hit their average. They need to be better than their average because, quite frankly, they have no answer for Embiid. Zippo. They got nothing for him. And until they figure out a way to stop him, and the problem is they're sending doubles and triples at him, and the Sixers are just way more equipped to handle that than they've been in the past because they have guys that can shoot. They didn't have that before.
Well, look, Embiid's going to get his 40 almost every game.
40 every night in this series if he wants to.
Yes, he will get 40. And I think Atlanta's almost kind of told themselves, all right, he's going to get 40. The question is, how do we defend the others? How do we keep that scoring a little bit lower? And I will say this, Mike, yes, they made 20 and they needed him in game 1, but it was really the end of that game where the inexperience, the youngness of that team cost them. Look, more likely than not, they learned from what they did at the end of game 1. They're not going to make that. They were up comfortably throughout that game. If they make, I still think they need to make 15 to 17 threes. I mean, I think there's no question about that for them to be successful. But they've got guys that can do it, Mike. And now going home, if you're a Sixers fan, you want one, right? You just let's get back to 2-2 coming back home.
Yes, but I mean they got to get the home field advantage back, the home court advantage back. So I think they're going down. I think the Sixers want to try to clean this thing out and finish it off. They think they know they're the better team here. The big thing is, what adjustment does Atlanta have in this series? Because the Sixers made their adjustment. How does Atlanta adjust to that? That's the question. A couple of years ago, when the Sixers played the Raptors, people talked about Brett Brown didn't do this, that, and he made the big adjustment in that series when he put Joel Embiid on Pascal Siakam, and that really changed the complexion of that. The problem was Nick Nurse made the adjustment to go double bigs, and the Sixers just couldn't do it. They didn't have double bigs. They couldn't do anything. And that was – so the Raptors did something. The Sixers adjusted to it, and it worked. Then the Raptors adjusted, and the Sixers didn't have another answer. They went with 2 bigs. The Sixers didn't have another. Their backup bigs were Greg Monroe and Boban. So they couldn't do it. What adjustment is Nate McMillan, can he make in this one? Because he doesn't have an adjustment for Embiid. It's not like he has another big guy hanging out on the bench that he hasn't played. I don't know what adjustment they can make now based on what the Sixers did.
Well, do you try to – if I'm looking at Embiid's game and I'm the coach of the Atlanta Hawks, do I sit there and go, okay, what am I going to give Embiid? But what piece of his game do I want to take away? So do I well, that's what I mean. But do you say to your team, I want you to sag on him if he beats us with 15 jump shots tonight, he beats us with 15 jump shots tonight. Or do you say, I'll let him take, drive to the hole. Let's not let him get anything outside. You've got to take away one piece of his game. Again, he's a talented player. He's an MVP candidate. He's going to make things work. But if you're the coach, I don't know that I'm doubling Embiid, to be honest with you, because, again, he's going to find the open guy, and you've got shooters out there. So do you simply say, Capella, do the best you can. We're not going to double him. We're going to keep everybody on their guy, and we're going to see how it plays out with that. Because at this point, there's going to be an adjustment. Now, defensively, the Sixers on Trae Young did a much better job in game 2, but you have to believe he's going to, bounce back and figure a way to get into that lane.
And what the Sixers did, and I don't know, how the Hawks combat with this, they do that double drag. They're trying to get the first screen and then the second screen that he can roll off of. Well, the Sixers brought their defender and brought him even further out. He was sitting around the foul line in game 1. Well, now they brought that second defender and put him out by the 3-point line. Well, now that second screener isn't really in play because the defender is so far out, which pushed Young so far out. So I don't know. How do the Hawks kind of try to change what the Sixers did with that defense? Because they put Ben Simmons on him. That completely changed the dynamics of that game. He couldn't get around Simmons. He just had such a problem with, you got a guy 6'1", the guy's 6'10" defending. The fact that a guy 6'10" can run around with a 6'1" guy, it's a pretty big advantage.
Well, what are you going to do if you're Trae Young? Look, I looked at game 1. I looked at game 2. To me, he wasn't as aggressive, Trae Young, in game 2 as he was in game 1. I think that's a part of it. I think it's a natural human instinct. They got game 1. You're a younger team. You come into game 2. He's got a little bit of cockiness. I did whatever I wanted in game 1. Kind of laid back, maybe settled for some jump shots where he could have drove more to the basket. I think he's going to be more aggressive at home in game 3. So just by default, even if you don't change game plans, I think Trae Young's going to get more opportunities than he did in game 2. But to your point, the size, what we had talked about in game 1 was there isn't anybody small enough on the Sixers to run around with Trae. But the size of the Sixers causes problems in itself. So Trae's quicker and can get around those guards a little bit, but the size of them to get up and over them is tough to do. So, again, who is it? Is it going to be, do you think the primary defender is going to be Simmons? Is it going to be Thibault? Does Thibault get in there and get a piece?
And what they did with Simmons in game 2, he started off on him and gave him all sorts of problems, but he can't run around with him the whole game, obviously. So they bring Thibault in, and what they did with Simmons was they moved him over to, this is where Simmons is just so valuable, is one possession he's defending Trae Young, the next possession he's on Gallinari or he's on, Bogdanovich. So he can kind of change to whatever guy you want him to defend. And that's why, he's such a valuable piece to have on your team, because they put Thibault on Young. And there's a play, if you watch, where they use Gallinari to screen and Simmons is on him. Well, they wanted to get it switched. They wanted to try to get Simmons off of Young. Well, they did that. Well, Thibault switched to Young, and Simmons goes to Gallinari. They still have an advantage because their two guys are bigger and just as quick. So that's where I think Trae Young's going to have a little bit of a chess match to figure out. All right, it's not Danny Green on me anymore. I got to figure out what to do. And by the way, like I said on the show on Wednesday, you got to let Trae Young shoot. He's not a good three-point shooter. He only hits 33% from three-point range. You got to tell him, you shoot the ball. Don't let him pass to these Bogdanoviches and Herters and let them guys get open looks. Make him shoot it.
Well, and the drive to the basket and the alley-oop to Capella. I mean, you're better off saying, Trae, show me you can consistently make that outside shot from 30 feet. And if you beat me, I'll tip my cap to you. But don't allow him to get into the paint and be able to kick out to the open man or, again, to the alley-oop to Capella. Once he breaks you down, now you're in trouble if he's in the lane. That's going to be the issue. I do want to ask you this, Mike, because, again, for Sixers fans, and I'm sure you've been hearing it, Danny Green's struggling, and he's struggling bad. What do you do if you're Doc? I mean, I don't know what you do.
Doc talked about that today, but I looked this up yesterday. He had 10 3. He had 5 of 9 threes in a game against Washington. He had 3 in another game. He had 10 threes or 12 threes in that series. Shooters, they're streaky. They shoot. I mean, you just take them out. He's hit so many big shots throughout the season, but even recently, the game against Washington, he saved them. He had 5 of 9. I don't know. I think you got to stick with him.
You just hope and keep. And again, you can change, make him defensively not a liability.
Well,
putting him on something else, right?
Game 2, he wasn't a defensive liability. Talking about Scott, though. Here's the problem. Here's the difference. He is such a better floor spacer. Even if he's not making shots, the other team has to keep an eye on him. They can't just leave him there because he shoots 40% from 3. He might not be shooting 40% from 3 that night, but the possibility of him, he was the number 1 3-point shooter from the corner this year. You know why? He's so damn open all the time because Simmons takes all the attention. You got to keep him on the floor because he's a floor spacer.
He struggles in game 3. What do you do? I mean, you riding him? Are you riding or dying him to the end?
Rivers, we talk a lot about coaches, right?
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a different opinion of how impactful a coach is, in what parts they're impactful in. Doc Rivers, he ain't changing the formula. This is what he does. People keep asking him, why you keep playing 10, 11 guys? These are the guys that played all year. He refuses to cut that rotation down. When teams get to the playoffs, they cut the rotation down to 8 or 9. He's still playing 11 guys.
Well, and his philosophy would be, I want the fresh bodies. I've trusted these guys throughout the year. They've all played a key role. And so for that purpose, as a coach, he's making that decision to say, that's my best chance to win games. You're right. He is a player's coach in that he will go to bat for his players. So saying that, my feeling is that Doc probably will ride or die with Danny Green, but I don't know that is what I would do. Again, I'm not an NBA coach, but I would probably give him this third game. And I'd say if he's still struggling, maybe even give him just game 4 to watch the game and take a deep breath and kind of get himself reset, right? I mean, I don't have to take him out for the series, but let's maybe get some of these other guys. I love Maxey. Get some of these other guys a few more minutes.
Well, what do you do? Because Milton came in the last game and scored 14 points. He basically saved that game for you. He was out of the rotation. Maxey had replaced him. Now, see, one of the things with Maxey in this series is his effectiveness has been taken away because Atlanta's bigger than it. Washington had smaller guards. So Maxey's getting matched up with Neto. He's getting matched up with Ish Smith. In this series, he's got bigger guards on him. He's having a tougher time getting clear pass to the basket.
Right. But to your point, Shake Milton, if that's a hot hand, maybe you swing and give him a few more minutes just because, look, you've got to go with the vibe of how these guys are. And if right now Danny's just not confident, that's going to be a problem. Now, if he bounces back game 3, it's a beautiful thing, right? And he's back in the groove. But he's going to be a key element, I think, for game 3 if the Sixers are able to get that and steal that one in Atlanta.
Like you say, your role players play better at home. Well, Danny Green's a veteran, who's won 2 championships. He shouldn't falter on the road. Seth Curry shouldn't falter as much. He's been having a great series. You wonder, though, the problem is they can't get Green and Curry going at the same time. They have one hit 5, the other hits none. One hits 5, the other hits 1. They can't get them both going in the same game. When they get that going, they're going to be extremely difficult to stop. I can't wait to see if and when that happens. But another thing that we've talked a lot about, Ty Lue, you got that Clippers series out there and the impact of the coach in the NBA. Like, we're seeing it right now where these comments that Steve Nash put out the other day, he said, they didn't hire me to be some tactical wizard. I'm here to connect with players. That's the job of these coaches nowadays. And we talk so much about the impact and the role of these coaches late in these games or even just winning a game. We talk about it so much. And I'm looking in these playoffs, Ty Lue won a championship. You think he stinks. Frank Vogel won a championship. You said they want him fired out there. I said, so what kind of accolade do you need to have to actually be a good coach?
Well, it shouldn't just be based on a resume. I've said this in any part of business. You got general managers of restaurants and hotels. They walk in with a resume. They get hired because of their resume. They stink as somebody who can talk to a guest or who can, I've seen it too many times. So to Nash's point, I agree to an extent.
Like,
of
seriously,
what he's saying.
Kenny Atkinson is a better NBA basketball X and O coach than Steve Nash is.
I mean, well, I see you say that almost like matter of fact. I don't know that we can now. Granted, he's been as a coach longer than Steve Nash, but to know, I mean, Steve Nash knows the game. He's been on the floor and knows the game probably better than Atkins. But to your point, Atkins is in front of a computer or a chalkboard and he's writing these plays. Sure, I'll give him credit and say he's had a longer coaching career to be able to do that. I will say Nash probably has surrounded himself with some pretty good X and O's coaches if he's not an X and O's type of head coach. But when I look at it, he also isn't going to take away the credit of the extreme talent he has on his team. So Nash isn't going to sit there and go, hey, wait a minute, guys. I make this thing run. No, he gets it. He's got one of the greatest teams collectively, the talent-wise, that any team's ever had. So he's not going to sit there and say, it takes me to win a championship. But I've told you before, I think the personality and the connection between player and coach is huge.
Yep.
And I also think late game decisions so important when we talk about timeouts, when we talk about coming out of timeouts. What are the play calls? Most of the game, the guys are playing the game, right? They know what they're doing. The practices, they're usually at the end of shot clocks, they're figuring something out that's totally off of a play call. But when I look at the relationships, and I told you this the other day, Tom Thibodeau, I don't think would be able to get through to a KD, Irving, and Harden. But he gets through to a Randall and the younger team for the Knicks.
Yeah, I just wonder, though, Todd, how much longer until they get tired of that, of him just riding them and grading on them. You know what I mean?
No, it's a great point. And I do think it has a timeline, right? It runs its course.
Well, it's like, too, if I said, like I said, Popovich, he's the best coach, right? Everyone said, who's the best coach? Popovich. Well, it's funny. Now all of a sudden he doesn't have Hall of Fame players and his team is right in the middle of the pack.
True, but I said to you the other day, but here's the thing.
Great. Nick Nurse was this great coach a couple years ago. Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, that helped. And now all of a sudden the Raptors can't make the playoffs.
Yeah, but to me, see, that's what I mean. You're looking at it from a point of view of a great coach should just be able to win a title at any point. That to me doesn't define the great coach.
Well, I'm just saying the impact of
course.
But that's what I've been saying is there are guys who are smart, they know the game, and in that one moment, bang, they get you. But I said that only happens, like the impact of that only happens so often. It's the play. Ty Lue stinks, but he wins because he has the best player, right? You'll take, I don't know, who's a good coach. You'll take Spoelstra, right?
I would say, because I would admit that I was wrong at the time with the Heat. He was young. You've got LeBron, you've got Dwayne Wade, you know what I mean? And you're going.
Even without LeBron, and they went to the finals last year. Okay, that was a little bit sketchy. This year, back to normal. They got bounced in the first round. And by the way, he had the same talent that he had last year against the same team that he played this year. It was Heat Bucks. They beat him last year. This year they got blasted.
Well, but again, is it? And that's what I mean. You can't say every year it's going to be the same result. The Bucks had a motivation. Giannis trying to improve and become a better player. There's different reasons for why things will happen.
Yeah.
You're right. The players play the game. They have the biggest impact. But I do think
it's about 80-20.
Like you can see the better thing I think to look at coaching is what great teams do you look at that didn't win the titles that you thought should have won the titles? And then you go, that's because they didn't have a coach.
Here's the thing. I think more times at the end, you're saying the team that won didn't have some great coach. Rick Carlisle, they get bounced in the first round every single year. They won a title because they had Dirk Nowitzki. Right? At the end of the day, how many teams you're like, they won and they had the whole package, great coach, great player. Most of the time, like, I don't know, Steve Kerr, they won the title because they had Durant, Curry. When they didn't have those guys, Steve Kerr wasn't all that good.
Well, I think he could have been Coach of the Year nominee this year with what he did with the Golden State Warriors. So that's my point. I'm looking at what do you produce? Do you get the most out of your players?
I think it's interesting that Brad Stevens, who was this great coach, they decided that the front office Brad Stevens was more important than the guy on the sidelines.
Well, yes and no, Mike. They also didn't want another team to take Brad Stevens as their head coach to bite him if it was in the same division, same conference. I think there was a double play on that. I think they did like his knowledge of the game and they wanted to keep him, but they also didn't want somebody else to poach him. I do.
He had a contract. It wasn't like he was leaving. He wants to be there, but they decided that you being in the front office is more important than being on the sideline. Like you have a bigger impact as the front office guy than you do as the guy on the sideline in that game at night.
Yeah, but do we know that, or did Brad Stevens said, "I want to be up there. I don't want to be down here anymore"?
No, I don't.
That's the thing. I don't know that I've gotten a clear answer as to has Brad Stevens said, "I wanted to join."
Well, he's
I wanted to
in
move
charge.
up.
He can make himself the coach.
Well, now he could. Of course he could.
Well,
That's a lot.
They don't want a guy to have that role. So,
and Doc had that before too, and it's tough to do. It's tough to do.
All right, Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. There we go. Tomorrow night, Sixers and Hawks. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. Real quick, who wins tonight? Bucks? Do they make this a series or Nets sweep?
I got Nets tonight. I don't think the Bucks have it.
They're a 3.5-point underdog, by the way. You might as well jump on that while you're at it.
Who are?
The Nets.
I'll take that all day.
Standard.
I'll put my lunch and my dinner on that.
I'm sure you like that Suns team.
Can I just take a minute to say, I think they have separated themselves clearly in the West, and there isn't a real close second. I think Suns and Nets have to be the absolute favorites right now.
The Jazz team's playing pretty nice.
Yeah, but no, I'm going to tell you this. The Clippers, they frustrate the heck out of me, and they might make this a series, Mike, but they really frustrate me. I mean, Luke particularly frustrates me, but the Clippers frustrate me.
It's funny. I had an NBA guy on here the other day. He came on and said, what a great job Lou's doing.
I can't take it with these people giving Lou credit. I heard Greg Anthony the other night giving Lou an excuse as to why he didn't use the timeout when they got the rebound. They're down 3 because Lou doesn't want the responsibility of calling a play. That's why Lou's not calling a timeout.
He's got the best players. He doesn't need to call timeout.
Oh, come on. You still need to call a play. Oh, it was so frustrating. But this Suns team, Mike, if you're not watching them, watch them. I'm so happy for CP3, man. This guy's just been thrown around the league. So many teams, so many situations.
You see the other night what the MVP looked like. He scored 40 against the MVP who really wanted what he did last night. I mean, come on. That was a joke. That MVP award has become a participation trophy.
Well, you thought Embiid should get it. I thought Curry should get it. We both don't like who got it.
All right, I got to go.
All right, get out of here.
All right, Frank Close is waiting on deck. We got him coming up to talk a little bit about the Phillies come back from behind victory today and so much more. Sports Match Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Stick around. Frank's up next. At 534 Sports Bass brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. All right, Frank Close is here after the Phillies come from behind win. Kind of. Well, they were up, then they were down, then they were up again. 2 in a row, walk-off style for the Phils. Well, we got a lot to discuss here. We talked a lot of Phillies at the opening of the show here. We had a lot of reaction on that, Frank, and he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. What's going on, Frank?
Not much. Phillies win. That's always good, right?
Phillies win, yes. And they were up 1-0. Neris gives up the home run, and then Alvarado comes in. And now I saw your tweet here, and I don't think I agree with it at all.
Which one?
You said the people who were ripping Neris and Alvarado, did you want Hale in? I don't think the anger, well, at least for me, like, it's not that I prefer Hale. It's my recognition, me recognizing that this team is just what they are, mediocre. They don't have better options, but that's the problem. I have to rely on Alvarado. That tells me all I need to know about who I am. I have a guy who's a professional baseball player who can't consistently throw strikes, but he's the best option I have. There's my issue. Not that Hale's better. It's that's my best option.
Right. Well, that can be your issue, but at the same time, that is not Joe Girardi's fault. He did not put the roster together.
I'm not blaming him.
Well, right. That's the thing. Like, people are. I saw a lot of people blaming Joe Girardi. Like, I'm like, well, who do you want them to go to? Like, your options beyond those two or David Hale, right? I mean, David Hale is still on this roster. He's going to be the one that has to come in if you're going to avoid those guys. And quite honestly, of the ones that he has, they probably give you the best chance to win. And they were an Odubel Herrera catch from winning that game under Neris anyway.
Yes, absolutely. And look, I see the people going after Odubel Herrera as well. Could he have made the catch? Yes. You're asking him to rob a home run.
I thought he had a chance. Okay, so not that he should have had it. It would have been a nice play, but he definitely got turned around the wrong way on that ball. After the game, Joe Girardi was saying that
he's not a good center fielder.
He's not. No, you and I have never thought that.
Yeah, no, he's not a good center fielder. And that's another, like, okay, so earlier today I said I don't want the Phillies to trade Rhys Hoskins. I don't want that, but I recognize at some point they have to decide with this group of guys, is this who we are? Are we just a 500 team? We're just going to be stuck in this middle. This is who we are. They have to make that decision. And if they make the decision of this is who we are, we're a 500 team, and they want to change it, he's the only guy that makes sense to move. Correct?
I think that's the case. But again, you need two to tango, right? So you need to find somebody that's willing to take him. And again, I keep throwing out the caveat: if there's a DH next year, maybe he's okay to stick around. But again, it depends on the bigger picture, because Alec Boehm probably can't stay at third base. We've been saying that since before he came up, although he was okay in the small sample size last year. You got to do something about the defense. And if you're going to do something about the defense, you can't have them in the corners. So we'll wait and see what happens with the DH. But that type of trade you're talking about is probably the type of thing that doesn't happen mid-season. It probably happens in the offseason.
So let me ask you this then. What about the other guys? Because people are texting me, you want to get rid of Hoskins. I said, no, I don't want to get rid of Hoskins. I just recognize he makes the least amount of money and has the most amount of value. Nobody's calling the Phillies for Bryce Harper, correct?
Correct. He's not going anywhere.
Right. And it's not because he stinks. It's because he makes too much money.
That and the no trade, all that stuff. He's here. He's a Philly for life, period.
Right. No one's calling them about JT Realmuto.
Correct.
Makes too much money. How about Zach Wheeler? Would they get calls on Zach Wheeler? He makes a lot of money, but man, he's been pretty darn good.
No, you need to get the value. That's such a really good contract. At the time, people thought, oh well, that's a lot of money. Well, look at what Trevor Bauer got, and I would argue that Zach Wheeler's been better than. I think it's an easy argument. He's been better than Trevor Bauer, who's just making $40 million this year. So you want to hang on to that value while you have it.
Yeah. But by the way, I don't think the Phillies want to trade him. The only other guy that they would consider, I guess, and I don't know if they would consider, but they would get calls on would probably be Nola. But I can't imagine. I think they would get more in return for Hoskins they would almost than Nola at this point.
I'll put it this way: I think of the players that are you can't touch on the Phillies roster. You have Harper, you have Real Muto, you have Nola, you have Wheeler. I think anybody else would be fair game as Dave Dombrowski tries to put together his roster.
You're not getting anything of value back in return for anybody else. Like people say all the time, Frank. Well, why don't they trade Segura? Okay, trade Segura. What are you getting back for him? All right, trade DD. What are you getting back for him? All right, trade McCutchen. You're getting a single-A bullpen arm for him. Trade Herrera. Nobody wants him. Everybody wants to trade the guys that nobody else wants.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think the Phillies are going to have to ride this season out. What they are right now, maybe with a couple pieces here or there, I think that's what they have to ride out for the rest of the year, because the type of basically what you're saying is Dave Dombrowski has to sort of reconstruct this whole roster.
That's it. And like looking around at this thing, Frank, and saying they're stuck in the middle. They're like the NBA Sixers were after Iverson. We're stuck in the middle. We can't get out of it. How do they what kind of move can this team make to really change it? Now, what evidence do we have that they can get 15 games over 500? I haven't seen any. So that's why I'm saying Dave Dombrowski has to be seeing what I'm seeing and saying this team is what it is.
I think there's evidence that they could win the National League East. I'm not saying that there's convincing evidence that they're going to go ahead and win the National League East. But where you're at with this roster, that's what they have to do. They have too many good players like Real Muto and Harper and Nola and Wheeler that are in their prime. And if they don't go for it now, the other thing that Dave Dombrowski can't do is go for broke right now in season. So what you're probably going to see is he's going to try to make some marginal upgrades along the way. And with his core he has, he's going to see if they can win the National League East. If they can't, well, then you're a year deeper and you have more of your prospects rising through the system. But this is, I think in this situation right now, Dave Dombrowski can't do any extra harm. He can't sign any more long contracts. He can't trade any more prospects. He's got to let the ones he has rise up a little bit more, the Bryson Stotts, and let Mick Abel get a little bit older, and just try not to do any more damage in terms of trading prospects or spending a lot of money to long-term deals.
You just said something about prospects, and I opened up my show today. Luke Williams, great story. Hits a home run, walk-off last night. He's almost in tears. Great story. It's also part of the problem that Luke Williams and Nick Maton are guys that you have to call up because they don't have anybody in this system. Those guys are nice players, but are they guys that are going to be regular and everyday players at the major league level?
No, I think both players you just mentioned, Nick Maton and Luke Williams, they could be the lefty and righty bench bats on the Phillies roster in a couple of years. So I think that's what they profile as. In fact, if you talk about Luke Williams as a prospect, if you look at the MLB pipeline, he was number 29. He was not really held as a high prospect. And actually, both of them, the last couple of years at spring training, the Phillies didn't hesitate to put them in the spring training games because they felt they had a certain maturity about them. And I think that's what got them to the major league so far. But no, they're not position player starters. The next one that you have a shot at is Bryson Stott, who just got up to Double-A and hit 2 home runs in his first game, by the way. But Bryson Stott might be your starting second baseman or starting shortstop, depending where this goes. I mean, you have one more year of Didi and Gene after this year. They might be able to trade one of them after this offseason. In this offseason. So with 1 year left on their deals, I think you do have a shot of moving them next year. But Bryson Stott could be poised to take one of those spots soon.
Well, and like when you say move them, and I tried to explain this, Frank, when someone says, do you want Gene Segura? The other team would say, yes, I would like him, but I'll take him because you don't want him, which means I'm not giving you anything in return for him.
Well, I see. Here's the thing. I think the two of them have value. I think if you found a team to match up with the trade, there'd be teams who want Didi Gregorius or who want Gene Segura next year because it's a 1 year deal. But the Phillies might have to chip in $5-6 million on either player. They're both going to make $14 million next year. And that's perhaps a little bit more than most teams would want to spend on the position, but they might trade you something of value if the Phillies need some money. So the Phillies are going to have to be creative with those deals. And a lot of it could depend who they trade of the two, could depend on how they profile lefty righty, could depend on where Bryson Stott ends up. Right now it's kind of remains to be seen if he'll be a shortstop, second baseman, or maybe even somewhere else.
He, by the way, got promoted from Jersey Shore to Reading, correct?
Correct.
All right, real quick, who is Luke Williams? Give us a little background on him. Where because he was, and how did he? When he goes for the Olympic team, how does that all happen?
So in order to qualify for the Olympic team or to be on the qualifying team that he played on, the team that fights to make the Olympics, you can't be on a team's 40-man roster. So what you have is you have a combination of prospects that didn't make the major leagues 40-man at that time, and some recently retired type players. So you had Matt Kemp, you had Todd Frazier, who started the year with the Pirates. You had David Robertson, who signed the 2-year deal with the Phillies and got hurt. So
Better than
players
anybody the Phillies currently have.
so, yeah, so that's how they put the team together. And actually, Luke Williams led that team in hits. So because the Phillies added him to the 40-man roster and added him just after he came back, he is now no longer eligible to go back on that Olympic team. So he will not be in the Summer Olympics because he will be with the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, even if the Phillies option him to AAA, he'll then be on the 40-man roster and can't participate. But that it's actually kind of refreshing because for Team USA, usually it used to be all prospects. At least now you have some seasoned veterans kind of getting involved in this. Since they shut the Olympics down several years ago, this is really the first opportunity for Team USA to participate again. And so you got that blend, some veterans, like I just mentioned, and then some of the young guys. And the fact that he was asked to be on the team was that they showed that there's some value in him. There's some versatility in him. And he was hitting 352 at AAA. So not a bad choice to help qualify for the Olympics. And Team USA will be there in July. Luke Williams will not.
I know you'll like this, Frank. And I think I heard you talk about this with Josh on game night about a week or so ago. No Friday night game for the Phils again.
Again, yeah, this is odd. I might actually have to go out and do things.
The Sixers play tomorrow, man.
Of course, yeah. Well, that's a great point. Actually, it was a lot of fun sitting in the press box Tuesday night while the Sixers were across the street. So I had the Sixers on my phone while I was sitting there, and I saw Rob Motti, who was in front of me. He had the game on his full laptop now and then. So hopefully, I didn't get him in trouble. The AP writer Rob Motti.
He tweeted it out.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah. So I was looking over his shoulder a little bit too throughout the course of the game.
All right. Frank Close, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Frank. That was good stuff.
Yeah. Great. Always good to talk to you.
Yeah, man. And, of course, check out the Powder Blue podcast. It's up right now on our website, 973ESPN.com, with Frank and Jeff talking a little Phils and all that kind of good stuff. Phils win today, but there was a really interesting story with this Luke Williams hitting the walk-off last night. He didn't have a good game today. He had a little infield single, and then I think it was 1 for 4 on the day. All right, we come back. We'll wrap up the show with today's guest and sound of the day. All right, let's finish out with the sound of the day here. Don't forget, Dave McMenamin is up tonight with Josh. Great NBA guest at 6:20. He was on the Sixers press conference calls today and had some interesting insight for that. By the way, I want to ask you, we're not going to have a lot of time for today's wrap-up, but college football is considering a proposal for a 12-team playoff format. I figured you had an opinion on that.
First of all, so for those who don't know, what college football is doing is they had a committee set up a study to figure out how they would do it. Now it has to go through all the hearings to see if it actually be passed or not. As soon as it would happen would be 2023. I think it's interesting. I think it's a little extreme. I think they should go 8 instead of 12 personally. But the fact they're willing to jump at 12 tells me that college football must see some huge money-making opportunity.
Well, obviously, this is a money thing. I mean, for competitiveness and the best product, it's 4. If you want a balance of both, you go to 8. To go to 12, you're watering the thing down, and that's a total money grab because you're going to get, what are they going to do, 12 versus 1?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that's what it is. They're kind of keeping certain details under wraps, but the one thing we do know is that it would be at home field for a couple rounds. Then it would go to the bowls.
6 highest ranked conference champions and the 6 remaining highest ranked teams.
Correct, and those would function as at large bids.
So the proposal, it says no conference would qualify automatically, and there would be no limit on the number of participants from a conference.
Right, which makes the SEC happy because they could have like 6 teams in there if they wanted.
Right, so I guess my question would be, like 1 versus 12, that doesn't do anything.
No, but there
For
might be a scenario where, let's say you're not going to get 1 versus 12, but maybe like 3 versus 10.
I mean, you get buys though. You get a couple buys.
Well, that's another thing. How many buys do they build in?
I don't know. Do the top 4 teams get a buy, and then it's 5 versus 10?
Maybe they're keeping some of the details under wraps.
6 versus 9, 7 versus 8, and then the winners play the top 4.
Yeah, there's a working theory out there that the college football commissioners are still arguing over some of the details. That's why this could take them so long to officially.
All right, well, so I don't like a 12. I'm okay with 8. I think
I want 8.
I would even do 6
excessive
and give the top 2 teams a bye.
I'm fine with that too. I think you need to do 6 or 8.
The problem I have with 4, I like the 4, but the problem I have with 4 is the monotonous of it. You're getting Alabama, 4. You're getting Clemson, you're getting Oklahoma, you're getting those same 3 or 4 teams. There's not enough variety.
My problem with the 4 has been almost every year one of those 4 teams.
Oh, by the way, it says teams 5 through 12 would play each other in the first round on the home field of the higher team. The quarterfinals, semis would play in bowl games. The national championship would remain at a neutral site. So 1 through 4 would get a first round bye. They listened to me.
Hey, maybe you know something I didn't.
Oh, I just read the article. As fair, I'm literally scanning through this thing as we're having this conversation, and I brought that up, and then I'm reading it as you were talking, and I say, under the proposal for the 12-team format, the 4 teams would get a first-round bye.
The magic of radio.
Dave McMenamin, great ESPN NBA writer, analyst, will join Josh for game night at 6:20.